Chapter 777. The two old masters were far away, so they didn't hear him. They were still fighting fiercely, punching and kicking each other. Old Master Chu's eyes were sharp. He quickly turned back and saw Chu Yang standing in front of old Mistress Yang. He was overjoyed and said hurriedly, "He's back, he's back." In his surprise, he was distracted for a moment and was instantly punched twice by Yang Bao. He shouted angrily, "Fuck your grandma! Your grandson is back, why are you still hitting him?" Yang Bao was stunned and said, "It's great that my grandson is back, but you and I are in-laws. You can't fuck my grandma." He punched again. Chu Xiongqing knew that he had scolded the wrong person. He could only dodge left and right. Yang Bao didn't give up and chased after him. Old Mistress Yang was so angry that she couldn't breathe. She shouted angrily, "Go! Drag the two of them away." At his command, Chu Failing and Yang Ruoxiong led hundreds of guards and rushed forward at the same time. They dragged the two masters apart and dragged them to the sides like dragging dead dogs. Master Yang struggled and kicked Chu Failing, and Master Chu also kicked Chu Failing back, not to be outdone. Their bellies were attacked at the same time. Then they separated and lay on the ground, panting heavily. Old Mistress Yang was furious. She stood up and pointed her dragon-head walking stick at them. She lectured them righteously, "What a scandal! What a scandal! Are you still in-laws? How can you behave like this when visiting your relatives? Aren't the two of you ashamed? You're almost 200 years old, but you're still fighting like children every day. I'm going to spit on the two of you. Today is my grandson's wedding day. If the two of you spoil my mood, I'll skin the two of you alive." Old Master Chu scolded, "You're only saying this when your grandson is back. You didn't say anything just now and even asked your husband to teach me a lesson. What a black-hearted woman." Old Mistress Yang continued scolding, "Chu Xiongqing, we're also guests. As the clan master of the Chu clan, is this how you treat your guests? I've traveled thousands of miles to get here and I'm starving, but you actually bully old Yang first." Chu Xiongqing was so angry that he was about to die. His mouth twitched and his eyes slanted. "I bullied old Yang? Your words are so heartless. It's clearly your Yang clan who came knocking on our door." Old Mistress Yang said furiously, "If you're not wrong, would he have hit you? I hit you for your own good." Chu Xiongqing was stunned. "Damn it, I've seen people who are protective of their loved ones, but I've never seen someone who is so protective of their loved ones. Damn it, who asked me not to be your husband? But it's also fortunate that I'm not." Old Mistress Yang kicked Old Master Yang Bao's butt and scolded, "You're so embarrassing. How could a mere Chu Xiongqing beat you up like this?" Master Yang cried out in pain. He jumped up and opened his swollen mouth. "I was just teasing him." Chu Yang's mouth was crooked, his eyes were slanted, and his stomach cramped. "Damn, it seems that this grandfather's family is a nest of high-quality goods. I finally understand where my nonsensical and shameless personality came from. It seems that I've inherited it from him. You can't blame me for this." On the other side, old Master Chu shouted, "Clean up a room and entertain the guests. Ask the kitchen to slaughter the pigs and goats, and prepare good wine." The two masters looked at each other with hatred. Suddenly, they burst into laughter at the same time. Old Master Yang Bao pointed at Chu Xiongqing, "Look at how you look now." "Ha, you look like a wild bear." Chu Xiongqing laughed, "Look at how useless you look now. You look like a wild donkey whose fur has been roasted." Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chu Yang looked at all this with goosebumps. He didn't notice that a strong man had already walked to his side. Suddenly, he felt darkness in front of him, and a sense of oppression hit him. He looked up and saw that the strong man, who was as tall as a leopard, was already standing in front of him. The man was looking down at him. Chu Yang thought that he wasn't short. How could a 1.83 tall man be considered short? But this strong man was actually 2.5 heads taller than him, and 1.5 times thicker than him. Standing here, Chu Yang suddenly felt that the heaven and earth had lost their beauty. The strong man, Yang Ruoxiong, stretched out his big hand and patted on Chu Yang's shoulder. He laughed and said, "Chu Yang? I'm your uncle, Yang Ruoxiong. What happened to you?" It turned out that this slap had slapped Chu Yang so hard that he was sitting on the ground. His martial power hadn't recovered yet. How could he withstand such a huge slap? Yang Ruoxiong stretched out his hand and grabbed Chu Yang's hair. Chu Yang's feet were off the ground, and he looked at Chu Yang from head to toe. He said suspiciously, "Why do you look like a bean sprout? You fell down with just a slap? Your body isn't strong enough." Yang Ruoxiong was still holding Chu Yang like a salted fish. His other hand turned Chu Yang's face over, and he clicked his tongue repeatedly. "Your little face is really not bad. You look like me when I was young. Everyone says that nephews look like their uncles. If you don't, then nephew, come and smile for your uncle." Poor Chu Yang's breathing was stagnant. His feet were hanging in the air, and his face was purple. He couldn't even speak, let alone smile. He only said angrily in his heart, "Luckily, I'm not like you. If I'm like you, it's hard to find a wife. But your name is Yang Ruoxiong. This name is really wonderful. I don't know who's so awesome to know that you look like a bear from the moment you were born." Yang Ruolin's shocked and angry voice came, "Yang Ruoxiong, let go of my son." She rushed over like a tigress. Yang Ruoxiong hurriedly put Chu Yang down and habitually patted his shoulder again. "Your body is too weak. You should practice with your uncle in the future. Why did you fall down again?" She slapped Chu Yang's buttocks again, and he fell to the ground with a plop sound. His face was deathly pale. Yang Ruolin rushed over angrily and slapped her elder brother to one side. She said angrily, "Your nephew's body is weak, and his meridians are sealed. He doesn't have any martial arts. You want to kill him?" Yang Ruoxiong scratched his head and laughed dryly. "I see. No wonder he's like a bean sprout." He was embarrassed and was about to slip away. Suddenly, he came to his senses and said angrily, "Who sealed my nephew's meridians? How dare you? Is it Chu Xiongqing, that old bastard?" Yang Ruolin was embarrassed and angry. She scolded, "Get lost." Yang Ruoxiong was afraid of his sister since he was young. He muttered and left resentfully. There was strength in numbers. Although the Chu clan was badly damaged, with over 1,000 people working together, they were able to clean up the mess quickly. Of course, the reception hall could not be used. Since it was neither too hot nor too cold, they set up a banquet in the courtyard. The two masters returned to their own territories to nurse their wounds, nourish their bodies, change their clothes, and deal with the bruises on their faces. After that, they put on their bright robes and swaggered out to the scene with their heads swollen like pig heads. Chu Yang began to pay his respects to his maternal grandparents, uncle, and aunt. He kowtowed repeatedly like a worm and received a lot of gifts in the process. First, old Mistress Yang gave him a sword. It was said that it could cut through iron like mud. Old Master Yang gave him a dagger. It was said to be an ancient divine weapon. When these two gifts were taken out, the entire Chu clan was filled with envy. "This is a rare treasure." Only Chu Failing and Yang Ruolin smiled bitterly. Their swords and sabers were given to them by Chu Yang. They were much better than the swords in front of them. Moreover, they were things that Chu Yang could give away casually. How could Chu Yang be interested in these two things? With Chu Yang's taste, he naturally wouldn't be interested in the sword and the dagger. But this was the first time that Chu Yang received gifts from his blood relatives. Therefore he was still quite moved. He thanked her politely and played with it for a while. In fact, she was trying her best to restrain her emotions. Yang Ruolin and Chu Failing saw this and suddenly felt sour in their hearts. They understood why Chu Yang was acting like this. So, the husband and wife felt as if they had broken a bottle of mixed feelings. They felt ashamed and regretful. What their son needed wasn't any treasured swords or divine weapons. What he needed was a gift of sincerity. But as his parents, they only cared about being happy and forgot all of this. This sword is called Blowing Snow. It is said that it was the sword of sword monarch Dongfang Weishu 1,000 years ago. It can cut through hair and cut through iron like mud. Old Mistress Yang saw that her grandson liked her gift very much. She couldn't help but feel comforted. Her eyes narrowed and she said with a smile, "Granny, thank you for your generous gift. I won't let this sword down," Chu Yang said emotionally. He knew that although such a sword was nothing in his eyes, it was still a rare divine weapon in the heavenly continent. For the Yang clan to be able to get it, they must have done something. Legend has it that this dagger is called Evil Dragon. It's made from the horn of a 10th grade spirit beast, Evil Dragon. It's extremely sharp and has its own cold air. As long as it cuts a person's skin, it can cause the blood vessels of the enemy to stiffen and die in an instant. Yang Bao chuckled and said, "This old man has always been open and above board. I like to use my fists, and I like the thrill of punching people even more. Just like when I punched your grandfather just now, cough, so I don't like this kind of sinister little weapon. But I saw that you looked like you could use it, so I brought it." Everyone laughed. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Is this a gift? What do you mean by, look like you can play with people? Besides, have you seen me before? She even brought me here because I look like someone who can have sex?" Chu Yang pinched his nose and accepted the gift. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit said thoughtfully, "This evil dragon dagger is still useful. For now, you can use this dagger to play with people and assassinate people. When your strength matures, you can directly absorb the cold air of the evil dragon dagger and turn it into your own cold air." Chu Yang made a sound of agreement. In comparison, it was actually his uncle's gift that Chu Yang liked the most. His uncle was the most direct. 500 purple crystals. How practical this was. Someone summed up the 4 chapters in one sentence. Chu Yang's grandfather and his whole family came to see Chu Yang. They fought with Chu Yang's grandfather. While they were fighting, Chu Yang came back and drank. Actually, these 4 chapters could have been written as such. Actually, I think that the book, World Defying Heavens, can be written in one sentence. Chu Yang became the master of the tribulation sword. After going through untold hardships, he slowly obtained the entire tribulation sword. He reached the peak, found a wife, made up for his regrets, and became the #1 expert. An eternal legend. Chapter 778. Part 7 Chapter 53, I Have a Wife. His cousin's name was very cute, Yang Yaya. She even gave him a peace buckle. Chu Yang thought, looks like grandfather's family isn't very sophisticated. Even their names are rustic. Their naming standards are a little inferior to my teacher Meng Charon's. Like Chu Yang, Tendon, such good names. Yang Ruoxiong laughed. He wanted to pat Chu Yang's shoulder but held back. He could only pat his own thigh and said in a rough voice, "I don't have any treasures. I feel that silly treasures aren't as practical as purple crystals. Nephew, if your grandfather doesn't give you purple crystals, I'll give you. I'll give you as much as you want. Take these first. If you want a concubine or something, give me purple crystals directly. If it's not enough, I have more here." Everyone was dumbfounded. Concubine? There's such a straightforward uncle. This is the first time they met, and he's already prepared for his nephew to take a concubine? Yang, who gave you this name? It's a good name. Yang Bao grinned and looked at his grandson. He felt that his grandson was good in every way except for his thin and weak body. Of course, it'd be better if he could be as strong as his uncle. Thinking, he sighed regretfully. Old Chu's son isn't good enough. It looks like that's all there is to it. My teacher gave me this name, Chu Yang said carefully. What's so good about this name? You also know how good this name is? Hey, you didn't know your background at that time, right? How did your teacher know that your father's surname is Chu and your mother's surname is Yang? Master Yang was surprised. This person isn't simple. Chiang. Haha, isn't it just our 2 clans? And his nickname is Yang. Obviously, more than half of it belongs to our Yang clan. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He finally understood what was so good about this name. This master thought that it was Yang from Yang tree. It's Yang from sunshine, Chu Yang corrected. Anyway, it's Yang. Yang Bao waved his hand. A sheep brought to the donkey shed is still a sheep, not a donkey. Chu Yang was surprised. How is it? Good nephew, are you satisfied with the things I gave you? Master Yang Bao laughed out loud and looked around proudly. We're not like a certain family who is so stingy that he keeps the purple crystals in his ass and is unwilling to take them out. As he spoke, he glanced sideways at Chu Xiongqing and sneered. Chu Xiongqing turned his head away angrily and snorted in his heart. I just don't want to expose your background. How can our Chu clan be as rich as your Yang clan? Do you think that this old man doesn't know that your Yang clan obtained a purple crystal mine many years ago? Otherwise, where did the purple crystal jade essence come from? Taking out 500 purple crystals in one go, how extravagant. Although this is already half a year's income for our Chu family, but to your Yang family, it's just a drop in the ocean. Otherwise, how did you nurture the blood-clothed team, which is made up of emperor-level experts? Old bastard, do you really think that I'm a fool? It's because of the relationship between the two clans that I'm unwilling to publicize it for you. Otherwise, with just a word, I'll have your entire clan annihilated. Yang Bao laughed and said, now that my grandson has finally returned home, I can finally put down one of my worries. Back then, my father was only born when he was 70 years old. It could be said that he went through a lot of hardships. Cough, cough, cough. Old Mistress Yang coughed repeatedly. Everyone was stunned. What does the return of your grandson have to do with your father giving birth to you at 70 years old? But that old master is really something. He's already 70 years old and he's still having children. Hearing the coughing, Yang Bao's tone immediately changed. Without blushing or panting, he said that, at that time, Yaya and Yang were about to be born. My father happened to get a piece of purple crystal jade essence, so he asked an expert to craft 2 jade pendants. One of them has Chu written on it, and the other has Yang written on it to represent their identities. Yang Bao turned his head. Nephew, where's your jade pendant? Chu Yang hurriedly took it out and handed it over. The girl in red beside him also took out a jade pendant and handed it over. Holding the 2 jade pendants, Yang Bao was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He said, these are the 2 pieces, huh? Chu Yang faintly felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, he heard Yang Bao say, at that time, there was also an agreement. That is, if these 2 children are both boys or girls, then it's fine. But if one is a boy and the other a girl, then they'll be husband and wife. This is really a match made in heaven. Chu Yang's head exploded with a boom. He suddenly felt dizzy. The girl in red beside him was also stunned. Then she blushed and stomped her feet. Grandpa, what nonsense are you talking about? Obviously, she didn't know about it beforehand. Yang Bao was overjoyed. He said, Yang, come over and see how your wife is. Yang Ruoxiong patted Chu Yang's shoulder and beamed with delight. Nephew, quickly go and see how my daughter is. You can't call her nephew anymore. Ha, my son-in-law. Ha, my son-in-law, quickly go. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. Yang Rulin and Chu Failing were also stunned. The 2 remembered this at the same time. There was indeed such a thing in the past. They immediately felt that things were bad. My son is back, and I was so happy that I actually forgot about this. What should I do? Others might not know, but how could the 2 of them not know? Chu Yang's heart had already fallen in love with someone. In the lower 3 heavens, an emperor's wife had given birth, and an empress's wife was still waiting for him. This guy. Here came another person who was betrothed before he was born. What was certain was that Chu Yang would never accept it. Even Wu Qianqian was so beautiful that Chu Yang didn't accept her even after spending so much time with her, let alone this cousin whom he just met for the first time. No! Before Chu Yang could decide on how to answer, Yang Yaya had already said angrily with tears in her eyes, I was still wondering why you wanted me to come. So this is the reason. How can you do this? The little girl pouted with grievance. She was very indignant. A girl's marriage depends on the parents' orders and the matchmaker's words. It doesn't matter what you say. If I say it's okay, it's okay. Yang Ruoxiong waved his hand. Moreover, it's decided by your grandpa. It can't be changed. Yang Yaya was angry, anxious, and aggrieved. Finally, tears streamed down her face. Yang, what do you say? Yang Bao stared at his nephew. Chu Yang touched his chin and said, My cousin is so pretty. This is of course a good thing. But I already have a wife. You have a wife? Not only Yang Bao's family, but even Chu Xiongqing's family was dumbfounded when they heard this. Even Yang Ruolin and Chu Feiling felt as if they were struck by lightning. This sentence was too shocking. Yang Bao stared at Chu Yang and pointed at him with his finger. He was so agitated that he even trembled a little. Then where's your wife? He wanted to question Chu Yang, but he thought that this guy had been away for so many years. How did he know that his family had already arranged a marriage? He really couldn't be blamed. My wife went to learn martial arts from her teacher, Chu Yang said calmly. Left with her teacher? Yang Ruolin was the most concerned. She said, "What's your wife's name? How does she look? Are you married?" Chu Yang's face revealed an awkward expression. He leaned close to his mother's ear and said, "Mother, this marriage can't be cancelled. Not to mention our family, even the Yi family, which is the #1 clan, can't afford to cancel this marriage." How cunning was Chu Yang? He could tell at a glance that no one else could cancel this marriage except for his mother. So, he might as well work on his mother. However, he didn't lie. Ning Tianya and Bu Luqing were the younger brothers of the two supreme martial artists. Even the Yi family wouldn't dare to cancel this marriage. If he were to infuriate the two supreme beings, that would truly be a calamity for him. Besides, the younger brother of the two supreme martial artists. If it was the Yi family, not to mention a great beauty, even if it was a sow, they would marry her and worship her. How could there be any talk of canceling this marriage? Yang Ruolin was surprised and happy. She asked in a low voice, "Whose daughter is it?" Chu Yang said mysteriously, "This matter can't be said here." Yang Ruolin glanced at Chu Feilong and suddenly realized. She said, Yes, it can't be said here." As she said, she turned to Yang Bao and said, "Father, since Yang already has a wife, why don't we just drop this matter? Yaya is my favorite niece. She's the pearl of the Yang family. No matter what, she can't be a concubine." Old Master Yang Bao stroked his beard and said, "Actually, it's normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines." At one side, Yang Ruoxiong's wife approached old Mistress Yang and pleaded, "Mother-in-law." Old Mistress Yang snorted and said, "Since Yang has already found a wife, what's there for us to worry about? Old man, let's just drop this matter." Old Master Yang was still a little reluctant. He said, "I'll see if this young wife is suitable for this matter. If not, we can just cancel this marriage and marry Yaya." Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So this matter was gently dropped. Next, the Chu family held a big banquet. Delicacies and wine were served up. Instantly, the fragrance of wine wafted from the Chu family. Yang Bao's father drank to his heart's content. Not long after, he was drunk. Old Master Yang Bao even scolded Chu Feiling at first. He said that Chu Feiling was a useless son-in-law. But he forgot about this matter later on. When they were drunk to their heart's content, the two bruised masters held each other's shoulders and were extremely intimate. They laughed and scolded each other as they drank. There was no clear winner on the battlefield, but there was a clear winner on the wine table. They were determined to get the other party drunk. Each of them pointed a finger and sealed the other's vital energy. Then, they picked up the wine jar and drank. After drinking for a while, the two masters' stomachs were swollen like drums. They staggered, and their eyes were slanted. Finally, they both collapsed with a loud bang. They were carried into sleep. At this time, the moon was already in the sky. Yang Ruolin was still worried. After they were done, she called her into the room and asked about her daughter-in-law's situation. Thinking of her grandson in the lower 3 heavens, Yang Ruolin was very anxious. More importantly, where are the monthly votes? Are there still recommendation votes? Chapter 779. Yang Ruolin was very melancholic and conflicted. This rascal, why is he so worrisome even though he has only been back for a few days? My little junior sister is such a good person. She even gave birth to a son for you. You actually, whose disciple is your wife? Yang Ruolin stared at her son. Ning Tianya. Chu Yang sighed. Yang Ruolin was confused and didn't react. He doesn't seem to be a famous person, and Bu Luqing. Chu Yang continued. Ning Tianya? Who's this? Why does this name sound so familiar? Bu Luqing? Also, Yang Ruolan thought for a while. Then she suddenly shouted loudly. Her eyes opened wide. Ning Tianya? Bu Luqing? Lower your voice. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Yang Ruolan sat straight on the chair. Her eyes were dull, her body was stiff, and her mouth was trembling. She asked in a soft and nervous voice, Are those the two supreme martial artists of the legendary land? It seems to be the two of them. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. In the northern wastelands, the two supreme martial artists appeared and saw your daughter-in-law. They recognized her talent and insisted on taking her as their disciple. They almost fought over this. In the end, the two of them decided to take her as their disciple. Yang Ruolan's expression changed as if she had heard an incredible fairy tale. For a long time, she even forgot to breathe. This was really too shocking. My daughter-in-law is the legendary disciple of the two supreme martial artists, Ning Tianya and Bu Luqing. Moreover, she is the disciple that the two supreme martial artists fought over. Such an identity is definitely thousands of times more noble than the identity of a princess. No wonder my son said, We can't afford to regret this marriage. Indeed, we can't afford to regret it. Yang Ruolan also heard that the two supreme martial artists had appeared in the northern wastelands. Now that she compared it with what Chu Yang said, she immediately believed it. My son has no reason to lie to me. Then, what about Tiantian? My poor little junior sister, my poor little grandson. Yang Ruolan's heart was in a mess. Mother, what are you thinking about? Seeing Yang Ruolan in a daze, Chu Yang couldn't help but ask. No, nothing. Yang Ruolan sighed deeply and said, Yang, this girl, do you like her? Then, he added, I mean, your girl, who was taken away by the two great masters? Chu Yang nodded affirmatively. Mother, she's the woman I love the most in my life. So, Yang Ruolan was disappointed and frustrated. She then said, So, you didn't accept Wu Qianqian because of her? Chu Yang stared blankly for a moment. He frowned and asked suspiciously, Mother, how do you know Wu Qianqian? Only then did Yang Ruolan realize that she had misspoken. She forced a smile and said, I've heard of it, Chu Yang grunted. It seemed as if he was replying, but also seemed as if he was pondering. Yang Ruolan had a guilty conscience, so she didn't dare to continue speaking. Changing the topic, he asked, Then, how does that girl look? Chu Yang nodded heavily. Peerless talent, the fragrance of the nation. Yang Ruolan was slightly relieved. She said, How's his temper? Does she listen to you? Chu Yang slapped his chest and said, If I tell her to go east, she won't dare to go west. If I tell her to beat a dog, she won't dare to scold a chicken. Yang Ruolan laughed and said, How's her figure? Chu Yang fantasized endlessly and said, She has a good figure, a good figure? Yes, I'm talking about when Jianghu grows up, Yang Ruolan murmured. Looks like she can give birth to children. Chu Yang was stunned. After Master Yang Bao brought his family to the Chu clan, he actually took over the place and stayed there. For a while, he didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. As a result, the Chu clan immediately became lively. Every day, the two masters' angry curses could be heard. Suddenly, they would jump into a fight. Then, the two bruised men would gather at the same table to eat, drink, get drunk, and sleep. Every day was incomparably comfortable. Chu Yang's life returned to normal. He insisted on staying at 2 o'clock every day. The next day, when Chu Yang arrived at the clinic, there was a little tail following behind him. Chu Lu, who had completely gotten rid of her pain, seemed to be getting better day by day. In just these 4 to 5 days, there were obvious changes. Her face was rosy and pale, and her hair was smooth and shiny. She was no longer as dry and yellow as before. Her figure was also growing. The only thing that remained the same was her calm demeanor. She was too calm and composed. She often had a gentle smile at the corners of her mouth. When she walked, she was quiet, like an orchid in a deep valley. Not a speck of dust could be seen, but she also had her own connotation and beauty. Only in front of Chu Yang would this little girl become lively. After being intimate with her mother for a few days, the little girl started to follow Chu Yang and became a little assistant in Chu Yang's clinic for free. Normally, Divine Dr. Chu's clinic was really unsightly. It was really a waste for such a fairy-like little girl to be in there. But Chu Le didn't care. Even when she was busy, she looked quiet and gentle. The next morning, when he arrived at the clinic and finally saw Chu Fian, Chu Yang got a shock. Fian walked with a limp. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He was cleaning up the mess. It was a mess inside and outside the clinic. There were broken furniture everywhere. A few medicine cabinets had long been smashed into smithereens. Chu Lu, who was following behind Chu Yang, couldn't help but exclaim, "Fourth uncle, what's wrong with you?" Chu Yang was instantly enraged. Looking at the situation, there must be someone who came to destroy the clinic. And it was a kind of revenge. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like this. "Fourth uncle, are you okay?" Chu Yang hurried forward. Chu Fian sighed and said with a face full of shame, Yang, I'm really useless. Why are you still talking about this now?" Chu Yang lowered his voice and said word by word, "It's the Shao clan?" Chu Fian nodded and said, "It should be." He sighed and said, "Although the other two clans also have experts who are better than your fourth uncle, I know most of them. But I don't know these people. Other than the Shao clan, there shouldn't be anyone else." Chu Yang said, "Yes." Chu Fian said, "They might come again tonight." "They'll come again tonight?" Chu Yang frowned, "Are you sure?" It turned out that when Chu Yang returned to the clan that night, Chu Fian immediately went to the Blood Payers Hall to issue a mission to collect all the purple crystals that Chu Yang handed over. When he came back that night, he found that Chu Yang hadn't returned yet. Chu Fian was worried and stayed here to look after the clan for a few days. He didn't expect that in the middle of the night, the door would suddenly be smashed open with a loud bang. Then, a few masked men rushed in. Chu Fian was a 5th-stage martial emperor, but these 5 masked men were all martial emperors. He couldn't resist at all and was even caught and beaten up. These men also knew Chu Fian's identity and didn't dare to treat him too harshly. They only beat him until his face was bruised and swollen, and interrogated him about the whereabouts of the purple crystals. How could Chu Fian hand over the purple crystals when the mission had already been issued? Besides, even if he had the purple crystals, Chu Fian would rather die than surrender. The purple crystals were the hope of his niece. How could he hand them over? Seeing that they couldn't force him to hand over the purple crystals, the masked men flew into a rage. Before they left some harsh words. "You have 1 day to hand over the purple crystals. If you can't do it tonight, you can wait to collect your niece's corpse." Chu Fian was beaten black and blue. Although his muscles and bones weren't injured, he still rested for half the night. He only got up in the morning. He wanted to go back to the clan to ask for help, but he couldn't make up his mind. This matter was a little embarrassing. While he was in a dilemma, Chu Yang came slowly. When he entered the courtyard, Chu Yang was even more furious. Dozens of his favorite purple bamboos had also been cut off. The others weren't damaged. It seemed that the masked men couldn't find the purple crystals and left. Chu Yang frowned and said with a sullen face, "Fourth uncle, there's something wrong with this matter. If the Shao clan wants the purple crystals, they shouldn't have delayed for so long, right? Why did they only take action 3 days later?" Chu Fian rolled his eyes and said, 3 days later is already very fast. Otherwise, they would come knocking on your door right after you finish treating your illness and earned so many purple crystals from the Shao clan. Isn't that deliberately provoking a war with the Chu clan? Although the Shao clan is rich and powerful, the Chu clan is the local tyrant of the flat mountain ridge. It's not easy to provoke them. After 3 days of buffer, all the big clans have recovered their strength. If they do it now, all the big clans will be suspicious. Even if the Shao clan is suspicious, they won't be too suspicious. That's why they're so brazen. Chu Yang nodded and said thoughtfully, "I see." His eyes flashed and he said, "Fourth uncle, have a good rest. Tonight, I'll prepare a big gift for them." Chu Fian said worriedly, "You? Can you do it?" Chu Yang smiled and said, "If I can't do it, then no one else can." He reached into his clothes and took out a small bottle. Inside it was white spring water. "Fourth uncle, drink this. It's good for your injuries." Chu Fian was experienced and knowledgeable. He opened the bottle cap and exclaimed, "Vitality spring water? Where did you get such a good thing from?" Chu Yang smiled. "Someone gave it to me in the past. I still have some left." Chu Fian held the small bottle of Vitality spring water and was reluctant to drink it. He said, "My injuries are only superficial. It's okay. Let's wait for third brother to drink this spring water when he comes back. All these years he's been running around outside. He's really tired from all the internal and external troubles." Chu Yang said, "I still have some here. I've already prepared it for third uncle." Chu Fian said reluctantly, "Then I'll drink half of it and leave the other half for your fourth aunt." Chu Yang said angrily, "Fourth aunt has drunk it too. Just drink it when I ask you to. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Chu Fian rolled his eyes and finally drank it. Chu Yang let Chu Fian go back to the inner room to treat his injuries. Then he cleaned up the shop. The medicine cabinet was smashed, so he simply threw it out. He instructed Chu Liang not to run around and to watch the door. Then Chu Yang went out from the small door in the backyard. He changed his appearance and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 780. A burst of hearty laughter sounded, and Sha Xinliang's shiny bald head appeared in front of Chu Yang. He hurriedly ran down and held Chu Yang's hands. "Little brother, why did you come back in such a short time? Come, let's go in and have some tea. We'll have lunch here in the morning. Let's have a good drink." As he said, he didn't wait for Chu Yang to speak, and pulled Chu Yang's hands enthusiastically into the house. The eyeballs of the two law enforcement officers who were on duty at the door popped out immediately. "Is this still our cold-faced and black-hearted Commander Sha?" Commander Sha had always been black-faced. He was indifferent to everyone. Even if the clan masters of the three big clans came, Commander Sha would still be arrogant. Why did he act like he saw his own father when he saw this young man today? Even when the law enforcement master came last time, Commander Sha was also like this, right? Hearing the news of Chu Yang's arrival, Qin Baoshan, who had been recuperating, also came out to greet Chu Yang with a smile. He hugged Chu Yang tightly and said with a surprised tone, "Brother! My little brother, you're finally here. I've missed you so much." Chu Yang had goosebumps all over his body. "I've just left this place for less than a day and a night." Sha Xinliang had already set up the tea and said smilingly, "Little brother, come and sit. I'm playing chess with old Qin. This old bastard reneged on his debt after losing the game. It's really boring to play with him." Qin Baoshan said angrily, "It's obviously you who stole my carriage." Chu Yang hurriedly waved his hands to interrupt their quarrel. He frowned and said worriedly, "My two brothers, why are you like this? You're in such a hurry to get your medicine, and you still have the mood to play chess at home?" Chu Yang was a little flustered and exasperated. He stamped his feet and said, This is improper." He was actually bristling with anger. Qin Baoshan and Sha Xinliang saw that Chu Yang was really anxious for them. They looked at each other and were touched. Qin Baoshan said gently, "Little brother, don't be anxious. With our status, why do we need to do it personally? It's already been arranged." Sha Xinliang smiled and said, "If the arrangement isn't good, we won't be in the mood to play chess." Chu Yang's eyes lit up. He was really surprised this time. He said, "That jade Ganoderma and heavenly jade. You found the spiritual liquid too?" Qin Baoshan nodded and said, "Those two herbs are indeed hard to find, but we still have some channels." He smiled proudly and said, "The jade clover Ganoderma and celestial jade elixir are both heavenly treasures and earthly treasures. The two of us contacted the Medicine Valley and the Zhuge family overnight. And the Medicine Valley just so happened to have heavenly jade elixir. The Zhuge clan has been preparing for the medicine banquet all these years, and among the medicinal herbs that they have collected, there are 2 stalks of jade clover Ganoderma." Sha Xinliang sighed and said, "Speaking of which, the two of us went to buy the medicine under the name of the Law Enforcement Hall using our power and authority. The other party had to give some face to the law enforcement hall, and that's why things went a little smoother. Otherwise, how many years would it take to find them on their own? I see. Chu Yang nodded and said with a relieved smile, then I'm relieved. The two of you must have spent a lot of money, right? Spent money? You can't spend money. Sha Xinliang said with some heartache, those are all purple crystals. The jade Ganoderma was slightly better as it only cost 5,000 purple crystals. But my celestial jade elixir, those bastards from the Medicine Valley asked for 10,000 purple crystals for the spiritual liquid. No matter what, they refused to lower the price, and it was 10,000 purple crystals. All these years, I've used up all my purple crystals and borrowed 3,000 purple crystals from Old Qin. Sha Xinliang gritted his teeth and cursed the black-hearted Medicine Valley. He sighed and said, I'm already heavily in debt now. Qin Baoshan rolled his eyes at him and said, look at what you're saying. I didn't ask you to pay me back. Besides, in front of little brother, how can you say that you've used your power to corrupt and bend the law? Little brother, you're an upright and honest person. Sha Xinliang laughed and said, it's precisely because you're not an outsider that I'll say it directly. If not, you can ask anyone else to say that the two of us only get 300 purple crystals a year. Don't tell me that we don't need them? If so, where can we get 10,000 purple crystals? Chu Yang laughed and said, you're right. Brother Qin, you're indeed overthinking. To be honest, law enforcement officers have been in charge of the heavenly continent for so many years. How many of them are not greedy? Besides, this thing is really normal. Everyone is well aware of it. Why is there a need to hide it? Not to mention that the two of you are my elder brothers. Don't tell me that I don't know the ways of the world in Brother Qin's eyes. Qin Baoshan laughed and said, it's my fault. I've said something wrong. I'll punish myself with a jar of wine later. The three of them laughed at each other. But Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. Jade Clover Ganoderma, 5,000 purple crystals. Heavenly Jade Liquid, 10,000 purple crystals. This was much higher than the price that he had estimated. One must know that the price of the remaining poisons was definitely much higher than that of Heavenly Jade Liquid. There was still a long way to go to collect elixirs. How did the two of you contact each other so quickly? Chu Yang suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but be tongue-tied. This Medicine Valley and the Zhuge clan should be very far away. Even if it's the fastest messenger eagle, it'll also take a few days, right? Haha, Sha Xinliang laughed and patted Chu Yang's shoulder. Little brother, if we rely on that to pass the message, not to mention a few days, we might not even be able to receive it in a few months. We might even be beaten down and roasted on the way. The law enforcement hall of us law enforcement officers has branches everywhere. And they're all in contact with the big clans. At the entrance of every branch, there's a jade mandarin duck. And we rely on the jade mandarin duck to transmit messages. In this way, even if the message is sent tens of thousands of miles away, the other side will receive it in less than 2 hours. Jade mandarin duck? What's this? The world is really big and full of strange things. Chu Yang exclaimed, the more I'm with the two of you, the more I feel like a frog at the bottom of the well. I don't know anything at all. This time he was really surprised. Sha Xinliang laughed and patted himself, saying, the jade mandarin duck is a strange kind of jade, and it has its own connection. It's a strange thing in the world. Even if they're tens of thousands of miles away, there's still a connection between the two pieces of jade. As long as a few 8th-stage martial saints and above are transferred to the jade mandarin duck, they'll be placed in the headquarters. The other pieces of jade will be placed in different places. When they're in use, they only need to transfer a little of their martial arts into the jade to achieve the effect of communication. He smiled slightly, saying, this thing is unique to us law enforcement officers. We all use this. And the Blood Payers Hall also uses this kind of thing. Or else, how can the message be transmitted tens of thousands of miles away within a day? Isn't that bullshit? Chu Yang was sincerely convinced. This is really good stuff. Little brother, please know that our purple crystals are already in place. That is to say, the money and goods have been settled. The Jade Clover Ganoderma and Heavenly Jade Elixir are being escorted by blood payers and are on their way here. Qin Baoshan smiled and said, "Our request is very urgent. Otherwise, how can we have the mood to play chess?" "That's really fast," Chuyang exclaimed and then asked, "But the two of you are still here. How did the purple crystals arrive?" "That jade mandarin duck. It shouldn't be possible to transfer the purple crystals over, right?" "Little brother, you're really naive and cute." Sha Xinliang was overjoyed. "Don't the two of us have any brothers who have gone through life and death together? Let them pay for it first, and then we'll pay back the debt." This time, the blood payers are escorting the elixirs over, and the purple crystals are also being escorted back. So that's how it is. Chu Yang finally came to know another secret. Mother of Mandarin ducks. This was really good stuff. Being able to transmit messages tens of thousands of miles away was much faster than anything else. If this thing was supplied to Mo Tianji in large quantities, and Mo Tianji used this thing to set up an intelligence network, how scary would that be? Chu Yang secretly remembered this in his heart. The three of them chatted for a while, and Qin Baoshan saw through it. He said, "Little brother, you didn't come here today just to catch up with us, right? You have a worried look on your face. Could it be that something has troubled you?" Hearing this, Sha Xinliang also became concerned and said, "Little brother, if there's something, you can tell us directly. As long as we can do it, we'll do it." Chu Yang sighed and said, "It's really hard for me to talk about this matter." "What's hard for you to talk about in front of us?" Sha Xinliang waved his hand and said, "1. Brother's matter is our matter. Don't hesitate to talk about it." Chu Yang said sadly, "The two of you should also know that I'm very short of purple crystals, so I opened the purple crystals Hui Chun Hall." The two of them nodded repeatedly. Chu Yang said, "But when I went to the medical center today, I suddenly found that my shop had been smashed into pieces. Even my fourth uncle, who was looking after the house, was seriously injured." "What?" The two of them immediately jumped up in anger. "There's actually such a lawless thing in our jurisdiction?" Chu Yang sighed and was disheartened. "I also didn't expect." Qin Baoshan flew into a rage. "This is too much. This is too much. Bullying my little brother is simply a slap to my face. This is intolerable." Sha Xinliang was furious. "It's also a slap to my face. What kind of bastard is so daring? I also don't know who they are. These people's cultivations are very high." Chu Yang said distressedly, "And after smashing my shop last night, they said that if I came again tonight and couldn't get the purple crystals, the Chu clan would have to wait to collect my corpse." Chapter 781. Chapter 50, Digging a Hole for You to Jump Into. "These damn things, they're simply cutting off our way of life." Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan had this thought at the same time, and they couldn't restrain their anger anymore. If Chu Yang dies, wouldn't the two of them follow and do that? Chu Yang sighed deeply and said, "I can tell this to the clan, but I've just returned to the clan, and I've already caused so much trouble. In the future, how am I going to survive in the clan? But I have no one else to rely on here, so I can only shamelessly come to you too." The two of them stood up angrily and patted their chests. "Leave this matter to us. If we don't kill this bunch of bastards, we're not human." Chu Yang said gratefully, "Will it be too troublesome for you too?" "What's so troublesome about it? It's no trouble at all," Sha Xinliang said straightforwardly. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit rolled his eyes. "If you die, the two of them will die too. The three of you are now in the same boat. They have to risk their lives for their own lives. Why would they be afraid of trouble? And you're still so hypocritical. It's so disgusting." Chu Yang thought for a while and said, "I have another worry." "What worry?" the two of them asked at the same time. "I'm worried that these people are likely to be from the big clans." He took a deep breath and said, "Except for the big clans, I'm afraid no one dares to mess with the Chu clan. Brothers, if you interfere, won't it affect your enforcement of the law here?" "Absolutely not." The two of them laughed. "If so, I have an idea." Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, "In this way, not only can we avoid future troubles, but we can also get back some of the purple crystals that you've paid for the medicine. Ha, oh, there's such a good thing? Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan's eyes lit up. The two of them had just paid a large sum of purple crystals, which was almost half of their lifetime savings, and they were feeling the pinch. Even in their dreams, they wanted to make up for the deficit. Hearing Chu Yang's words, they were instantly energized and focused their attention. Even their ears stood up. Chu Yang smiled strangely and said, "We only need to do this." The two of them slapped their thighs hard at the same time and laughed heartily. "Little brother, what a brilliant plan." In the morning of the same day, Chu Yang couldn't resist the two's hospitality, so he ate and drank to his heart's content in the law enforcement hall. Sha Xinliang was actually quite interesting. He called two girls to accompany him to drink and sing. After singing and dancing for a while, Divine Dr. Chu went out drunkenly and took a detour back to the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. Along the way, Chu Yang laughed sinisterly. If he were to send the sword spirit to deal with this matter, he would definitely be able to wipe out all the invading enemies one by one. However, how could Chu Yang be willing to settle things so simply? Wouldn't that be letting them off too easily? Since he wanted to stir up trouble, he naturally had to do it in a big way. These people in front of him were obviously sent by Xiao Yulong of the Xiao clan. Chu Yang was just worrying about how to drag the Xiao clan into the chaos. How could he let go of such a heaven-sent opportunity? As long as the law enforcement officers fought with the Xiao clan, and it would be best if a few of them died, then, no matter what the Xiao clan came for, it would be like yellow mud falling into their pants. Even if it wasn't shit, it would still be shit. Humming a tune, Divine Dr. Chu entered the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. As soon as he entered, he was met with the little girl's bright and calm eyes. No customers came in this period of time, right? Chu Yang touched his nose and stroked the little girl's hair with his other hand. It was soft and smooth, and felt very good to the touch. Chu Lur curled her lips and said, "Just look at your shop. Even if it wasn't smashed, no one would dare to come in." Chu Yang laughed and said, "What a sharp-tongued girl." Chu Lur sniffed and immediately pouted, "Big brother, you drank again, right? What a strong smell. Why, who doesn't like me to drink?" Chu Yang tilted his head and teased her. "I've told you long ago, don't treat me like an ordinary child." Chu Lur frowned her thin eyebrows and sighed, saying, "Which girl doesn't hate men drinking? But I'm different." "Why are you different?" Chu Yang was also gradually getting used to it. This sister of his was indeed much more mature than other children because of the pain in her body. Hearing this, he couldn't help but ask curiously. When men drink, there's a strong smell in their mouths. Most women love cleanliness, so disputes between husband and wife often arise because of this. Chu Lur said quietly. The way she spoke was like a quiet and mature young lady in her 20s, and not like a little girl who was only 12 years old. "But every time my father comes home, even if he's alone, he'll drink. I know that he's suffering in his heart, and he's worried about me. I can't make him not worry, and I can't resolve his worries. And every time my father drinks at home, I always cherish that time very much, because he's at home after all." Chu Lur said somewhat miserably, "So, every time, no matter how much my head hurts, I'll lean on my father's side. For every cup he drinks, I'll pour a cup for him. I'm afraid that after pouring wine for my father this time, he'll go out to look for medicine, and I won't be able to hold on at home until he comes back. Then I won't be able to pour wine for my father anymore. Every time my father comes home, he'll be so worried that he'll frown. But every time he sees me, every time he drinks with me in his arms, he'll smile. So every time he comes home, I'll lean into his arms. But every time he goes out, I won't send him off. Because every time he sees me, he'll be even sadder. The pressure will be even heavier." Chu Lur smiled and said, "So, I like to watch my father drink, but every time I have to pretend to be unhappy, he'll come and coax me. After coaxing me for a while, I'll smile, and then he'll smile sincerely." Chu Yang was dumbfounded. He really didn't expect, and almost didn't believe, that such words would come out of the mouth of a 12-year-old girl. "So, I don't dislike you drinking, big brother." Chu Lur revealed a gentle smile. She raised her head and said, "You're the same as my father. You're not someone who drinks as much as your life. Perhaps it's because you have no choice but to drink, or you drink because you can't get rid of your stress. But no matter what, if it's not because you have to drink, then it's because alcohol can reduce your psychological stress. So, it's only right for you to drink." She tilted her head and looked at Chu Yang. It was only at this moment that she showed a trace of innocence that matched her age. She said, "Big brother, in the future, if you want to drink, I'll not only pour wine for you, but also accompany you to drink." Chu Yang was stunned for a while and said, "Oh, if you're not my sister, I'll definitely not bear to marry you off." Chu Le's face turned red. She spat and said, "Big brother, you're really shameless. I'm only 12. Besides, I don't know if there's a man in this world who can catch my eye." "Ha, I don't know if there's one." Chu Yang said seriously, "You're not young anymore." In his heart, he thought, "Your future sister-in-law seems to be a few months younger than you." Chu Le snorted and glared at him with her almond-shaped eyes. She said, "Big brother, if you continue to talk like this, I'll tell Auntie that you're taking liberties with me. If this little girl were to complain about him like this, divine Dr. Chu would be worse than a beast." He even took liberties with his own sister. Chu Yang's weakness was immediately grasped. He was completely defeated and raised his hands to surrender. "It's Big Brother's fault, I'll change," Chu Le giggled. She took a duster and carefully swept Chu Yang's body. She said considerately, "Big brother, you've drunk wine. Quickly go in and lie down for a while." Chu Yang agreed. Chu Le continued, "I heard that wine is also called a broom to sweep away worries. If Big Brother didn't drink because of social interaction, could it be that you're feeling lovesick? Thinking of my sister-in-law?" Chu Yang glared at her and threatened, "Little girl, why don't you know how to watch your mouth? Be careful, I'll spank you." Chu Le wasn't afraid at all. She curled her lips and said, "It's no wonder. One is trapped here, while the other is learning martial arts from a master." The pain of lovesickness is also very difficult to bear. Chu Yang glared at her. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chu Fian took the Vitality Spring water and meditated until the sun set in the west. He finally recovered completely. When he got up, he saw Chu Yang drinking tea and talking with 10 masked men in black in the courtyard. Chu Fian was startled. He said, Yang, you're not the experts from the clan?" Chu Yang smiled mysteriously and said, "These helpers of mine are more in charge than the people from the clan." Chu Fian looked at these 10 people doubtfully. He thought, that's not right. The highest cultivation among these 10 people is about the same as mine. Chu Yang said that he'll take care of everything. Could it be that he found these 10 people? But I've clearly said that they're all martial emperors. Chu Yang alone is enough to deal with these few people in front of me. Chu Yang seemed to have seen through Chu Fian's doubts. He laughed and said, "Fourth uncle, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything at night. You just have to protect Le and watch the show." "What? Le has to stay here too?" Chu Fian was shocked. Chu Le squinted her eyes and said, "With fourth uncle here, I'm not afraid of anything." Chu Fian felt a headache coming on. "My little ancestor, in such a battle, I can't even take care of one little ancestor. Now there's another one." Chu Le blinked her eyes and sighed. She said, "Fourth uncle, you're too careful. Big brother obviously knows the strength of the other party, but he still made such arrangements. If I said that Big Brother didn't have a plan in mind, you probably wouldn't believe it." Chu Fian suddenly realized and felt ashamed. He laughed self-mockingly and said, "Sigh, I'm old. I can't even see things as clearly as a 12-year-old girl." Chu Le raised her head proudly and said, "It's not your fault that you're old. It's just that there are too few geniuses like me." Chu Yang and Chu Fian were speechless. This little girl's narcissism is quite similar to my old brother's, Chu Yang thought. That night, Chu Yang booked a sumptuous banquet from a nearby hotel and drank with everyone. Chu Fian became more and more puzzled. These 10 people didn't say a word. They didn't even take off their masks when they drank and ate. They drank all the wine in their cups in silence. Chu Yang became more and more worried. He waited for a long time, but there were no new reinforcements. He sighed and thought, damn it, These 10 reinforcements are purely here to die. Although they don't dare to kill me, they shouldn't be soft-hearted to kill these 10 people. It rained heavily for 3 consecutive days. Ditches filled the river. There was a power outage 3 or 4 times yesterday. The district informed us that there would be a power maintenance inspection this afternoon. But there was no movement until now. I don't know what's going on. Could it be that they're fooling us? Chapter 782. Chapter 57. I want to report a case. I'm being wronged. While 4th Elder Chu was worrying, it was already late at night. Outside the door, there was a gentle breeze. Everything was quiet. The clock had already struck the 3rd watch. Suddenly, with a bang, the door of the clinic was kicked open by someone. The broken door turned into sawdust and flew into the air. With a loud laugh, a black-clothed masked man swaggered in. His eyes swept over everyone present. He couldn't help but be startled. Then, he couldn't help but laugh. 4th Elder Chu, these are the reinforcements you found? Chu Fian snorted and said, "Do I need a huge army to deal with people who hide their heads and show their tails?" The leader smiled sinisterly. "What a stubborn mouth. 4th Elder Chu, don't provoke me. Otherwise, although I won't take your life, if I accidentally cripple you, it won't be pleasant." Chu Yang snorted and said, "4th Uncle, quickly go into the room behind with Lu." Chu Fian was still talking, but Chu Lu had already pulled him into the room with her short legs. "Stop them. Other than these few people from the Chu clan, kill everyone else without mercy." The leader of the black-clothed men shouted. The 10 reinforcements that Chu Yang had invited roared and jumped up at the same time. They actually charged over without saying a word, as if they were mutes. One of the masked men laughed sinisterly. He unsheathed his sword and charged over just like that. To them, the 10 people in front of them were really not enough. It was just a single charge, but a few screams rang out. Among the 10 people, there were already people who were injured. Blood splattered all over the ground as they screamed and fell down. Chu Fian watched from the door and was very anxious. He was about to jump out but was held back by Chu Lu. Since the appearance of the masked men in black, Chu Yang had been hiding in a clump of purple bamboo. At this moment, no one noticed that his expression had become cold and desolate, and his gaze was sharp and ruthless. He was ready to deal with any unexpected situation. The one standing here now was no longer Chu Yang, but the sword spirit. "Chu Fian, do you want to use such trash as reinforcements?" The leader of the black-clothed men shouted proudly. Although he gave the order to kill without mercy, he was afraid that this was a trap, so he didn't kill them. If there were important people inside, as long as they didn't go too far, there would still be room for negotiation. As he punched and kicked, he kept an eye on his surroundings. If there was really an ambush? Humph, as long as the old ancestor of the Chu clan didn't come, the others. Even if Chu Failing came, it wouldn't be a problem for them to escape even if they couldn't beat him. There would definitely be no traces left behind. After waiting for a long time, no one came out. The man in black laughed and said, "Chu Fei Yen, do you really not want your nephew's life?" At this moment, a voice with obvious anger and boundless killing intent roared, "Take down these audacious bandits." His voice was like thunder. The entire night sky seemed to tremble for a moment. Chu Yang smiled inwardly. The sword spirit instantly canceled the mission and returned to the tribulation space. The black-clothed man swung his sword and took a step back. He looked up and saw that the 4 roofs of this small medical center were full of people. There were a total of 20 to 30 of them. They were tightly surrounded. Suddenly, he panicked. The cultivation of these people is not low. Where did so many experts come from in the Chu clan? Just as he was wondering, footsteps sounded from the broken door of the medical center. In the night, 2 figures walked in slowly. One of them had a long beard, while the other was bald. In the night, his beard was actually shining. Their faces were as cold as water, and their eyes were filled with killing intent. One had a long beard, while the other was bald. They were simply 2 famous trademarks in the flat mountain ridge. If they didn't know who these people were, they wouldn't be able to stay in the flat mountain ridge anymore. Oh no, we've been tricked. The leader of the black-clothed masked men suddenly changed his face. At the same time, he was extremely puzzled. Why did these two people appear here? And why did they come to meddle in our Shao clan's business? Sha Xinliang walked forward slowly. His eyes were cold and his face was as cold as iron. He clasped his hands behind his back and shouted, "Do you still want to resist after seeing me?" The leader of the black-clothed masked men sighed and said, "It's Elder Sha. Since Elder Sha is here, we won't make any more trouble. Elder Sha, please be magnanimous and let us go." "Let you go?" Sha Xinliang sneered angrily. "Then, who will let you go?" The leader of the black-clothed masked men thought, "What's wrong? Who dares to force you? And he actually let you off the hook?" He took 2 steps forward and said in a low voice, "Elder Sha, I'm from the Shao clan. If Elder Sha lets me go today, the Shao clan will definitely repay you tomorrow." After a pause, he said, "Since Elder Sha is here to protect us, we won't make any more trouble in the future." He thought, this isn't the first time such a thing has happened. Once these words come out, the great crisis will definitely disappear. This Sha Xinliang is usually a very tactful person. But he didn't expect that Sha Xinliang had already glared at him and scolded impartially, "I don't care if you're from a small clan or a big clan. I enforce the law impartially. No one can get away with it after messing with the laws of heaven. All of you, take off your masks. Everyone listen to my orders. Seal their cultivation and tie them all up." The leader of the black-clothed men was surprised and almost dropped his chin on the ground. He said confusedly, "Elder Sha, what are you?" Sha Xinliang scolded and slapped the leader of the black-clothed men heavily. The leader of the black-clothed men spun on the ground like a spinning top and scolded angrily, "Motherfucker! You actually want to cut off my way of life. You even want to make things difficult for the law enforcement officers. You're something that came out from the crotch of a prostitute." He snorted angrily and said, "I've sent 10 iron plate law enforcement officers to guard here, but you actually injured one of them. You're really bold. I admire you." At this time, the 10 law enforcement officers had already stood up. They pulled down their masks and took off their black robes, revealing their law enforcement robes. It was just that their robes were stained with blood, and there were holes here and there. Obviously, they were all seriously injured. The heart of the masked men sank to the bottom of the valley. We're done for. We're really done for this time. The so-called robbery is a small matter, but killing law enforcement officers and resisting law enforcement officers are the most taboo things in the entire law enforcement organization. This was clearly a trap that had been dug beforehand. It's waiting for us to jump in. And after everything went smoothly last night, we actually jumped in so stupidly and got caught red-handed. If we resist now, we're definitely not their opponents with Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan here. And our crimes will be heavier, and we'll die in vain. The crowd didn't dare to resist anymore. They stood there honestly and dejectedly. Their cultivations were sealed and they were tied up. There was a glimmer of hope in their hearts. After all, we're from the Shao clan. Sha Xinliang can't be so ruthless, right? After staying in the law enforcement hall for a while, we'll be brought out by the clan. At this time, Big Boss Chu jumped out and said anxiously, "Law enforcement officer, I want to report a case. I've been wronged." Upon hearing this, Fourth Master Chu, who was hiding at the door and peeping, rolled his eyelids and almost fainted. "This is obviously arranged by you. Who can't tell? And you're even acting so realistically." Sha Xinliang pretended that he didn't know Chu Yang and said righteously, "Oh? You're the boss of this medical center? What grievances do you have? Tell me in detail. I've always been impartial in enforcing the law. I'll definitely seek justice for you." Chu Yang said with grief and indignation, "Thank you, law enforcement officer. I'm just a doctor. I've made a living with my medical skills. How would I know that I've encountered such an undeserved disaster?" Wiping his snot and tears, he said, "This afternoon, I saw these 10 law enforcement officers patrolling on the streets. I was very grateful." The law enforcement officers worked hard without complaint for the peace of the world. They were really too tired. So, to express my gratitude, I specially invited them in for a cup of tea. who knew that at this moment, an unexpected disaster would fall from the sky. He revealed a frightened expression and said, "Sir, you didn't see it. This person rushed in and destroyed the shop first. Then he destroyed all my precious medicinal herbs and even seriously injured my fourth uncle. I'm afraid that his life is in danger." I begged him bitterly, but he still couldn't stop him. The law enforcement officers went forward to stop him. But I didn't expect that these people were heartless and unscrupulous. They didn't even care about the law enforcement officers. They kept saying, "The law enforcement officers are nothing. We don't care about him." Speaking till here, that person had already widened his eyes. "When did we say that? Even if you want to cheat us, you shouldn't cheat us like this." Chu Fian's jaw dropped. My life is in danger? I didn't even move my fingers from the beginning to the end. So, the law enforcement officers angrily took action in order to protect me. However, these evil bandits were truly deranged. They even seriously injured the law enforcement officers. If you didn't come in time, I'm afraid that these 10 law enforcement officers would have already died in the line of duty. Chu Yang said with grief and indignation. Finally, he finished speaking. "Sir Shah, this guy was just spouting nonsense. Don't believe his nonsense so easily." One of the people who were tied up said with grievance, "There's no such thing. Sir, you should know what's right and what's wrong. Even if he invited the law enforcement officers in to drink tea, how could he drink till midnight?" Qin Baoshan shouted and stepped forward. He swung his arm and gave a heavy slap on the face. The person who was speaking raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. He screamed miserably, and all his teeth were knocked onto the ground. Looking at the shape of his face, it was deflated directly. Qin Baoshan then shouted angrily, "The law enforcement officers are investigating the case. All of you, shut up. Whoever dares to speak rashly will be killed without mercy." The rest of the people were shocked by this violent method, and they felt that something was wrong. At this time, Sha Xinliang turned his head and said, "Book, have you recorded the case that Boss Chu reported this time?" Chu Yang almost laughed out. This guy actually brought a book with him when he came out to handle a case. He's really well prepared. I want monthly votes. I want recommendation votes. I want monthly votes. I want recommendation votes. I want evaluation votes. Chapter 783. Behind Sha Xinliang, a young man was holding a pen and paper and was writing furiously. Obviously it was Shu. He said respectfully, "Commander, I've recorded everything. This is a major case." Sha Xinliang said majestically, "Don't forget a single word wrongly. It must be consistent with the facts." Shu said loudly, "Not a single word is correct, Commander." Sha Xinliang nodded satisfactorily and said, "Continue recording." Sha Xinliang was majestic and impartial. Then he asked the 10 law enforcers who arrived first, "Let me ask you, is what Boss Chu said true?" The 10 law enforcers stood at attention at the same time and said loudly, "Boss Chu is not wrong at all." Sha Xinliang asked seriously and responsibly, "Did you really just come in for a cup of tea?" "Yes, Commander." The 10 people answered in unison, as if they had rehearsed. It was in the afternoon, and Boss Chu saw that we were sweating profusely. So, he welcomed us warmly, not to mention that person cursing in his heart. Even Chu Fian almost laughed on the spot when he heard this. Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan also frowned. "You're all martial emperors, but you're actually sweating profusely just from walking? And it was in the afternoon then, but it's already the 3rd watch period now. You've been drinking tea from the afternoon till the 3rd watch period? Even martial emperors would have their bladders swollen from drinking so much. You're really dressed like this, and they actually dared to attack you? And they attacked you immediately?" Sha Xinliang quickly changed the topic, and his voice became colder and colder. Now, even a fool could tell that something was wrong. "When you, Sha Xinliang, came in, these people were still dressed in black? Are you blind? And you still ask?" The 10 people said loudly, "Yes, Commander. After we dissuaded them, we not only wore this set of clothes before we attacked them, but also showed our waist tokens. These evil bandits didn't retreat. but became more aggressive and fought with us. The 10 people said guiltily at the same time, "We're not skilled enough and we've embarrassed you." Sha Xinliang nodded and said, "Did they really say that law enforcers are nothing? Did they really say that?" The 10 people said indignantly, "Yes, Commander. This person is extremely vicious and evil. He is heartless and unscrupulous. He is unpardonable." "I'm so angry." Sha Xinliang roared, "You're all injured. Did they do it?" The 10 of them immediately replied with grief and indignation, "Yes. Commander, please check carefully. Out of the 10 of us, some of us have been injured by swords and sabers. All of us are in danger of losing our lives. The remaining one has suffered internal injuries from the shock and is on the verge of death. So serious. How dare these bandits be so lawless? You've really rebelled." Sha Xinliang was furious. "Your injuries are actually so serious." "Yes." "Commander, please uphold justice for us. We must protect the inviolable reputation of the law enforcers." The 10 life is at stake. Practitioners puffed out their chests at the same time and said with a loud voice and shining eyes, "Wasn't it just one stab? But this time, he would definitely be able to extort a lot of things from the Shao clan. That would be worth more than 10 stabs. It's over." The man lowered his head at the same time, his heart filled with despair. Sha Xinliang said solemnly, "Report all your injuries to the Shu. I must get an explanation for this matter. If we don't punish them severely, where will the prestige of the law enforcers be? Where will our dignity be? To kill a law enforcer in broad daylight, this kind of behavior is simply inhumane and deranged." "Yes, Lord Enforcer." The 10 of them became even more excited. "I know that you've been wronged, and I also know that you're loyal. You don't have to hide your injuries. Just tell me the truth about your injuries." Sha Xinliang's accent was very heavy. "Hence, Shu, I've been stabbed in the heart. My injuries are extremely serious." A guy who had a cut on his shoulder said excitedly, "Shu, both of my legs are broken." Another guy who had wounds on his buttocks said excitedly, "Shu, I've been stabbed in the Baihui acupoint on my head and the Yongquan acupoint on the soles of my feet. I've been hit 103 times on my back and 10 of my ribs are broken." A guy who had a piece of scalp cut off said, Shu, I've been hit by 30 venomous sand palms, 72 deadly kicks, and 351 finger strikes. I'm already covered in wounds, and there's not a single piece of unharmed flesh on my body." The last person who wasn't injured at all said while blinking his eyes, "That's too evil." Sha Xinliang roared, and his face turned red. He wasn't angry, but ashamed. "Damn it, these bastards really dare to say that I've been stabbed in the heart? 103 palms on my back? 10 of my ribs are broken? Come, let them sign their names." Sha Xinliang cut the Gordian knot. It seemed that the trial of this case would end here today. Hence, the 10 law enforcers who were fatally injured and were about to die rushed up fiercely. That guy was full of despair and desperately refused to admit his guilt. But his cultivation was sealed, and the 10 people wouldn't be polite to him. After a few kicks, he rolled on the ground like a gourd. Then they took out their knives and slashed their bodies fiercely. They dipped their fingers into the blood and then pressed it on the case record fiercely. "The witnesses and evidence are all here. The criminal has confessed, and the case is irrefutable. Come, bring this vicious bandit back to the law enforcement hall. Serve him in the death cell." Sha Xinliang shouted with high spirits, "We must prevent them from committing suicide by biting their tongues. Dislocate their lower jaws first. After we go back, we'll organize an elite team to interrogate them overnight. We must find out the culprit behind this at all costs. To warn the others." Chu Yang coughed at the side. Sha Xinliang understood. He turned his head and instructed Shu seriously, "Ask Boss Chu about his losses, how many heavenly treasures and earthly treasures he lost, how many purple crystals he lost, and how serious Fourth Master Chu's injuries are. Record them down carefully for me." Shu said loudly, "Yes, I'll definitely do it properly." Sha Xinliang turned back and looked at Chu Yang. he said seriously. Boss Chu, I'm very sorry that such vicious bandit actually appeared in my jurisdiction. Such an earth-shattering case. Don't worry, Boss Chu, I'll handle this case impartially and give you justice. As long as the culprit behind this case is found out, I'll definitely compensate you for all your losses. Chu Yang was so touched that he cupped his hands and said in a tearful voice, although it's my first time meeting you today, I can tell at a glance that Commander Shah is really a good official who upholds justice for the people. With Commander Shah here in the flat mountain ridge, it's really a blessing for us commoners. Heaven has eyes. As the ancient saying goes, good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be punished with evil. Once Commander Shah is here, both good and evil will be rewarded. Shah Xinliang's bald head turned red from all the compliments. He coughed twice and said, Boss Chu, you're flattering me. Shu had already come to Chu Yang and said kindly, Boss Chu, what losses do you have? I'll record them down. Chu Yang sighed deeply and said with infinite pain, the losses are too great. He was filled with endless grief and indignation. Hating the heavens and the earth, he said, my spiritual herbs are all gone. These are the spiritual herbs that I plan to use to help the world, benefit the people, nourish the common people, and save the world. These are the treasures of more than 70 generations of my ancestors, and they're all gone just like that. Mr. Chu was about to cry. Shu hurriedly said, Boss Chu, please restrain your grief. Let's talk about your losses first. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Your Chu clan in the upper three heavens has a total of more than 70 generations? Boss Chu wiped his tears and said, the losses are too great. There were 10 pieces of 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, 5 pieces of 2,000-year-old golden ginseng, 5 kilograms of 1,000-year-old Solomon's seal, 5,000 years purple lotus, 3 pieces of 2,000-year-old snow glossy ganoderma, 1 10,000-year-old polygonum multiflorum, 1 piece of formed floating illusion essence, 1 stalk of cold grass from the sea of fire, 250 kilograms of 10,000-year-old snow essence. Chu Yang spoke eloquently for a quarter of an hour. Finally, he let out a breath and said magnanimously, these are all the valuable things. As for the others, it's fine if they're lost. They're all small matters. Shu's face also twitched. My dear mother, your bill alone is enough to empty the Shao clan's base in the flat mountain ridge. I don't know if it's enough to compensate. There's also the loss of the medical center's facilities. But these aren't worth much, so forget it. Chu Yang sighed and said, my fourth uncle's injuries are very serious. My fourth uncle's head was hit and his head was severely concussed. His eyesight is already bad. His chest was stabbed by a sword and he was hit by a palm. His internal organs are already ruptured. His legs were hit by 7 knives and 3 swords. I'm afraid his legs are also. Sigh. The most serious one is my younger sister. She's frightened and she can't think clearly now. Chu Yang sighed and said sadly, although I'm not injured, I was hit by a few palms. When you came, I was vomiting blood. I vomited a basin of blood. The muscles on Shu's face twitched as he recorded meticulously. His head was full of sweat, and his handwriting was actually a little messy. Of course, there's also some losses. The 2,000 purple crystals stored in our shop have disappeared. Chu Yang said with grief and indignation, they're simply not letting us live. You're not letting the Shao clan live. Sha Xinliang sighed at the side and said, they're really a bunch of goddamned people? They're too black-hearted. He really didn't know if he was talking about Chu Yang or that person. Shu asked, Boss Chu, are there any other losses? Chu Yang rolled his eyes and thought for a while. Finally, he said reluctantly, no. Yes, there's also the loss of our reputation. We've only opened the shop for a few days, and we've already attracted robbers. Anything else? This time, there's really nothing else. It was finally over. Shu wiped his sweat and put the case file in front of Chu Yang, saying, Boss Chu, take a look. Are these the correct ones? Chu Yang nodded repeatedly and praised, you've written it very correctly. These are the correct ones. Boss Chu, please sign and make a mark. Shu almost couldn't bear it anymore. I've written it exactly as you said. How can it be wrong? Today's first update. Today, I have something to do and need to go back to my hometown. Our custom here is that 5 to 7 days after a person's death is a very solemn day called Fiery Fifth Day. Today is the day that my second uncle's fiery fifth day, so I worked overtime for a while. Originally, I wanted to rush out 2 chapters for today's update. But until now, I've only written a little more than 1 chapter, so I've published it first. When I come back in the afternoon, I'll write the second chapter. Chapter 784. Chu Yang took the writing brush, signed his name and pressed his thumbprint on it. He said emotionally, "Thank you very much, sir." Sha Xinliang laughed and said, "You're welcome. It's the responsibility of us, the law enforcers, to get rid of the evil and bring peace to the people. Number 3, please check the injuries of Boss Chu, 4th Elder Chu and Sister Chu Wu." The 3 of them strode out of the ranks. Chu Fian was perturbed. "I'm not injured at all. What's there to check? Won't I be exposed if I'm checked?" Number 3 walked over with a serious face. Chu Fian lowered his head and took a look. Number 3 said loudly, "4th Elder Chu's head is seriously injured. It seems that he was injured by the autumn wind palm. It may affect his eyesight and hearing." Chu Fian was dumbfounded. "You're really talented to be able to see the Shao clan's autumn wind palm from my head that's intact." Chu Yang only mentioned his eyesight, but this guy actually added his hearing. Number 3 continued, "4th Elder Chu's chest was stabbed too. 3 inches deep. His internal organs have been injured. There's also a palm print on his chest. There's no doubt that his internal organs have been ruptured." Chu Fian blinked and felt dizzy. He felt that he was dreaming. 4th Elder Chu's leg injury is very serious. His tendons and vessels have been injured. I'm afraid that his legs can no longer walk. That's all. Number 3 stood at attention. Sha Xinliang said gratifyingly, "Number 3, you're getting more and more skillful." Number 3 was praised and immediately became excited. He said loudly, "It's all thanks to the cultivation of Commander." At this time, Number 3 also reported, "Sister Chu Wu is a little frightened. It's very serious. It's caused her to have difficulties in speaking and thinking. She may lose her memory. If it worsens, her limbs may also be affected and atrophied." Number 3 reported, "Boss Chu was hit by 3 palms. His internal organs are damaged. He vomited too much blood and is suffering from severe blood loss." Sha Xinliang sighed, "These people are too much." Then he said, "Boss Chu, if there's nothing else, we'll take our leave first." Chu Yang said politely, "Sir, do you want to have a meal before you leave?" "No need." Sha Xinliang rolled his eyes in his heart. He thought, "It's almost midnight now. What's there to eat?" But his mouth was very serious as he said, "We, as practitioners of the law, never accept invitations." He waved his hand and shouted, "Withdraw." He said to Chu Yang, "Boss Chu, if we have any information about the mastermind behind this, we will need your cooperation in the investigation." Chu Yang laughed and said, "That's my honor." Sha Xinliang nodded with a smile, turned around and whistled. With a crashing sound, the spellbearers on the roof jumped down at the same time. Looking at the first 10 spellbearers, everyone's eyes were filled with jealousy. Fuck, why can't such a good thing happen to me? Under the leadership of Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan, the law enforcers escorted this wanted criminal and left triumphantly. Chu Yang stood at the door and waved his hands to send him off. He sighed, "You're indeed worthy of being called a Taoist. You're really a good person." When he turned around, he saw that his 4th uncle Chu Fian and his younger sister Chu Lu were already standing behind him. Both of them had the same expression: collapse, contortion, convulsion, disbelief, as if they were in a dream. Chu Yang laughed dryly and said, "Today's weather is really good." Chu Fian finally lost his temper. He grabbed Chu Yang's collar and growled, "Damn you! How many things are you hiding from me?" Chu Yang said innocently, "4th uncle, why do you say this? Aren't you watching over everything?" Chu Fian hugged his head and sighed, "I think I already know you very well. But now I realize that I don't even know a single strand of your hair. Chu Yang laughed dryly. Fourth uncle, you're exaggerating. That, I'll go and pack up. Seeing that it's going to be daybreak soon, we're going to open for business. Food is the most important thing for people. Then he turned around and said angrily, You're a little girl. Why don't you sleep and stay up all night? What do you want to do at such a young age? He turned around and wanted to leave. But Chu Fian grabbed him by the back of his neck and pulled him back. Don't run. Chu Fian leaned forward and asked fiercely, My head was hit hard? Has my head become a ripe melon? Or is it? Chu Yang, Chu Fian said aggressively, my internal organs were all shaken and I won't live long? Chu Yang, that, Chu Fian kicked his legs, my legs were hit by 7 sabers and 3 swords? Are they crippled? Are my legs a lackey now? Chu Le burst into laughter. Chu Yang said bitterly, that's because I want more compensation. The enforcers are so reasonable. If we don't accept it, it won't be right. Chu Fian snorted and finally couldn't help but laugh. He scolded, Isn't the compensation yours, big boss? My partner didn't get anything at all, and he's even being criticized so miserably. Chu Lu jumped over and raised her finger. Big brother, I don't care about other things, but I'll definitely get my compensation. She blinked. I'm so scared that I can't think clearly. Chu Yang was speechless. The enforcers were indeed fast. They caught him in the middle of the night, and the results were out in the morning. So, the flat mountain ridge was in a mess. When Xiao Yulong received the news, he staggered a few steps and sat on the ground. Xiao Yulong had always felt that he was very lucky and very capable. As a distant relative of the Xiao clan, he was smart and capable since young. And he had dabbled in all kinds of martial arts. What he was most satisfied with was his talent. He was considered one of the best among the younger generation of the Xiao clan. Before he was 20 years old, he was already a 7th-stage martial king. He was assigned to be a small steward. After 3 years of training, he climbed up step by step. Now, he was only 45 years old, but he was already a 4th-stage martial emperor. Moreover, the clan valued him very much. In the flat mountain ridge, he could be said to be in charge. Not only was his power increasing day by day, but his income was also rising. Moreover, the flat mountain ridge was relatively stable and there weren't any major issues. The most wonderful thing was that the 3 big clans there kept each other in check. This was a lucrative position. In the 2 years that he was here, the Xiao clan's income from business had increased by 30%. The clan also greatly rewarded him. Xiao Yulong felt more and more complacent. In fact, this person was capable, but he was a little narrow-minded and couldn't take any losses. Moreover, in the flat mountain ridge he relied on the power of the Xiao clan and proclaimed himself as the local tyrant. In a word, he was used to being in the limelight. Once he suffered losses, he couldn't take it. Therefore, when he saw that the small Chu clan's medical center dared to accept purple crystals from him, he couldn't help but feel unhappy. So, he cut off 200 purple crystals and humiliated Chu Fian in front of everyone. But he still felt suffocated in his heart. Even though he cut off, he still paid 200 purple crystals. That night, Xiao Yulong investigated all the information about the Chu clan's medical center and felt relieved. Then he waited for 3 days before sending people to snatch the purple crystals back. He also wanted to teach Chu Fian and his nephew a lesson. He wanted them to know that he was the one who did it, but they didn't have any evidence. This kind of thing was the most suffocating. Who knew that the people who went didn't see the purple crystals or Chu Fian's nephew? Xiao Yulong was even more unhappy. He continued to send people the next day. These people all had the cultivation of martial emperors. They were the men of sacrifice trained by the Xiao clan. He thought, even if the Chu clan is prepared, they can still escape if they can't beat us. Moreover, even if they don't move, would the Chu clan dare to kill people from the Xiao clan? Therefore, Xiao Yulong was unscrupulous. In fact, he didn't really want those 200 purple crystals. He just wanted to vent his anger. At the same time, he wanted to establish his authority. With me, Xiao Yulong, here, no one can be arrogant. He drank his wine confidently. 2 maids served him attentively on his left and right. He waited for the people he sent to return triumphantly so that he could vent his anger. Who knew that after waiting for a long time, that person still didn't come back at dawn? Xiao Yulong felt that something was wrong. He slept restlessly for a while. Seeing that the sun was high in the sky, he still didn't come back. He was a little anxious. He was about to send people out to find out when suddenly, the rumbling sound of horse hooves could be heard at the door. 8 fast horses came over arrogantly. The riders on the horses were dressed in black. On their chests, there was a blood-red word, law. It was dazzling to the eyes. The 8 riders all had gloomy faces and cruel gazes. Xiao Yulong shivered. Why did the law hall send 8 high-level law enforcers to my place? What's going on? Who is Xiao Yulong? Among the 8 law enforcers, the leader, a hook-nosed man, asked with cold eyes. Xiao Yulong hurriedly took 2 steps forward and said with a smile, I am. I didn't know that the law enforcers were coming. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Sirs, please come in and serve tea. The hook-nosed man waved his hand. His voice was as cold as ice. No need. Xiao Yulong, you've committed a crime. Come with us. I've committed a crime? Xiao Yulong was confused. What crime? The hook-nosed man's face became more and more gloomy. He looked at him fiercely and said cruelly, Don't you know? Xiao Yulong said, What crime could I have committed? He looked left and right and suddenly forced a laugh, saying, As the Xiao family's steward, in charge of the flat mountain ridge, I've always been law-abiding. How could I have committed a crime? Ha! The hook-nosed man said indifferently, I advise you to save some strength. It won't be too late for you to laugh when you reach the law hall. His eyes turned sharp. He waved his hand and shouted, Take him down. Tie him up. Take him away. Xiao Yulong and the dozens of Xiao family experts who came after hearing the news were shocked. They almost couldn't believe their ears. It was actually, take him down, tie him up, take him away? What kind of crime did he commit to be treated like this? Xiao Yulong immediately panicked and shouted, I'm not guilty. You can't treat me like this. The 2 law enforcers sneered and approached him. Xiao Yulong said angrily, You dare to touch me. I'm the steward of the Xiao family, one of the big dominating families. If you want to take me, show me evidence. Evidence? Evidence your grandmother. The 2 law enforcers' eyes turned cold. They suddenly attacked at the same time. With a few slaps, Xiao Yulong's face was bruised and swollen, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. They didn't expect that the law enforcers would really attack. The people of the Xiao family immediately became restless. Who dares to move? The law enforcers shouted. Their eyes were fierce. Chapter 785. The law enforcer with a hooked nose raised a black token. On the token, there was a blood-red word, law. He said loudly, Under the orders of the law enforcement hall, we are here to arrest the evil bandit Xiao Yulong. If anyone dares to obstruct us, we will kill them. We will punish them for obstructing the law enforcement. The law enforcers drew out their swords and swords. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. They looked at the hundreds of experts of the Xiao clan with sneers on their faces. They were not afraid at all. Obviously, if the Xiao clan dared to make a move, the law enforcers would dare to kill them. Moreover, the law enforcers were not guilty of murder. If the Xiao clan made a move, it would be considered resisting the law enforcement. Even the entire Xiao clan would not be able to escape the responsibility. Xiao Yulong did not dare to bear such a heavy crime. He hurriedly shouted, No one is allowed to make a move. This steward will make a trip with the lords. This matter is just a misunderstanding. Everything will be fine once it is clarified. Xiao Yulong would not dare to openly oppose the law enforcers. This would bring immeasurable trouble to the Xiao clan. If the clan knew, no matter who was right or wrong, they would immediately skin Xiao Yulong alive. The Xiao clan slowly retreated. Xiao Yulong put on a calm expression and walked forward. He put his hands behind his back and smiled, Law enforcers, please make your move. The two law enforcers smiled and suddenly kicked his legs at the same time. Xiao Yulong was kicked 5 feet away and knelt on the ground. He was sweating profusely from the pain. One of the law enforcers strode over. He grabbed Xiao Yulong's hair with one hand and slapped him with the other. He scolded as he slapped him, "Fuck you, the elders are here. Why you still acting like this? You still want to act like a gentleman at this time. You really don't know what death is. I will beat you to death, you idiot." One slapped him, and the other kicked him wildly. His face was full of anger. After that, he took out a rope made from the tendon of a spirit beast soaked in water and tied Xiao Yulong up like a pig. Xiao Yulong had just recovered from the shock and severe pain, and was about to open his mouth when a smelly ball of cloth was rudely stuffed into his mouth. Immediately after that, he was hit hard on the back of his head, and fell to the ground headfirst. Once again he was dragged up. The rope used to tie him up had a length of 20 feet left, and it was tied to the horse's tail. The hook-nosed enforcer scanned the Shao clan members with his sharp eyes and said sternly, "Other than Xiao Yulong, there are a few other accomplices. When I call out their names, they will stand out automatically. If you don't come forward, everyone here will be implicated." Then he shouted loudly, "Xiao Zhangyu, Li Shuifeng, Lu Meng." He called out the names of 3 more people. The 3 of them walked out of the crowd with gloomy faces. The law enforcement officers pounced on them like wolves and tigers and treated them the same way they treated Xiao Yulong. In the blink of an eye, the Shao clan members who were tyrannical in the flat mountain ridge were brought to justice. They were all tied to the horses' butts, waiting for them to set off. The leading law enforcer with a hooked nose whistled, "Let's go. Retreat." One whip lashed at the horse's back, while the other lashed at Xiao Yulong's back. He urged his horse to gallop. The other 3 law enforcement officers did the same. Each of them lashed twice. The strong horses neighed in pain, and the people screamed in pain. Their skin and flesh were torn apart, and scraps of cloth were flying everywhere. Xiao Yulong and the other 3 people were dragged behind the horses' butts, and their cultivations were sealed. They were pulled to the ground after 2 steps. They screamed all the way as they were dragged out. They were dragged for less than 200 feet, and there were clear bloodstains on the ground. The sound of the horses galloping disappeared with a rumble. The rest of the Shao clan members looked at each other. Everyone was shocked and terrified. What did Xiao Yulong do? He was actually treated like this. The law enforcement officer's treatment just now was completely based on the treatment given to prisoners on death row, and even exceeded it. What did Xiao Yulong do to anger the heavens? How did he cause the law enforcement officers to be so furious? But everyone knew that no matter what, the situation must be extremely serious. Otherwise, the law enforcement officers would not be so violent. After all, this was the Shao clan's territory, and the Shao clan still had some face. If it was not that kind of intolerable crime, how could the law enforcement officers not know the severity of the situation? Everyone had an ominous feeling in their hearts. Maybe Xiao Yulong's crime this time. Even the clan can't protect him. Hurry and inform the clan. One of them shouted anxiously. Everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream and ran in one after another. Everyone was nervous and sweaty. They were really frightened. "Xiao Yulong, no matter what crime you committed, don't implicate us." Xiao Yulong was caught by the law enforcement officers. Net. This news spread like a whirlwind throughout the flat mountain ridge. When Xiao Yulong was caught, it was in the morning when there were the most people on the streets. The law enforcement officers rode on their horses and even took a detour. They purposely dragged Xiao Yulong through the most crowded places, as if they were dragging a dead dog. How could the people not be in an uproar? Instantly, the 3 big clans all received the news. Each of them carefully sent people out to find out, what crime did Xiao Yulong commit? It's actually so serious and so shameless, hence, there were many discussions on the streets. Some said that Xiao Yulong raped the law enforcement officers' daughters. Some said that Xiao Yulong raped the law enforcement officers' wives. Some said, all in all, everyone was in high spirits. Humans were always like this. When they saw the big shots that they used to look up to being dealt with in such a way, they would feel very happy and gloat happily. Moreover, Xiao Yulong was really not popular here because he was abusing others. At this moment, people came one after another to hit him when he was down. Many people who had been bullied by Xiao Yulong directly went to the law enforcement hall to lodge a complaint. Who wouldn't want to hit a drowning dog that made people extremely angry? What was completely different from Xiao Yulong's treatment was that the big boss of the Purple Crystals, Hui Chun Hall, Divine Dr. Chu Yang, had already been politely invited over by the law enforcement officers early in the morning. He was currently sitting cross-legged in the hall of the law enforcement hall, drinking tea leisurely. As for the detour, it was naturally Boss Chu's idea. At that time, Boss Chu said, "Brother Sha, if you want to attack a person, it's best to make him lose his face first. Peel off his self-confidence and pride first, then he'll be easy to deal with." Sha Xinliang deeply agreed. As a result, Xiao Yulong suffered a lot because of this one sentence. The sound of horse hooves came from afar. Sha Xinliang immediately put on a straight face. He walked out with Chu Yang and went straight to the interrogation hall. Chu Yang reminded him in a low voice, "Xiao Yulong is still in the dark now. It's better to separate the two crimes. This way, Sha Xinliang understood tacitly. He beamed with joy and nodded repeatedly. Chu Yang naturally knew how to behave. He turned into the interrogation hall and stood at the side door at the corner. He put on a look of fear and trepidation, and stood at the side with his hands hanging down. His face was full of grief and indignation. The sound of horse hooves stopped. A few muffled groans came in. Then, as if the gag was removed from the mouth, a voice shouted, "I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. You're disregarding human life. I want to report back to my clan."
What?
With a puff sound, it seemed that its mouth had been punched or kicked, and it stopped making any more sounds. Then, a few law enforcement officers dragged Xiao Yulong and the other 3 people in like dragging dead dogs, and threw them to the ground fiercely. Instantly, blood splattered everywhere. Chu Yang's expression didn't change. He glanced sideways. The current Xiao Yulong was totally different from the Xiao Yulong that night. That night, Xiao Yulong was so arrogant, well-dressed, and handsome. But now, his clothes were ragged, his hair was disheveled, his eyes were bruised, his face was bruised, and some places were even bleeding. His nostrils were like 2 bloody holes that couldn't be stopped. His mouth was also dripping with blood. His body was even more unsightly. His back and chest were almost worn to the point that his bones were exposed. How could the word miserable be enough? The other 3 people were also in a miserable state. "Xiao Yulong, do you admit your crime?" Sha Xinliang asked expressionlessly. "May I ask Commander Sha, what crime did I commit?" Xiao Yulong trembled. Although his words were a little unclear, he finally made himself clear. "You don't admit your crime?" Sha Xinliang's eyes were cold. "Commander Sha, please enlighten me." Xiao Yulong raised his head stubbornly. "Ha! You asked people to pretend to be bandits to rob the Chu clan's medical center. Do you admit to this?" Sha Xinliang asked slowly. "This." Xiao Yulong never expected that he was caught here because of such a trivial matter. He almost vomited blood. "How many times have I done such a thing before?" "Every time, it would be settled with 20 to 30 purple crystals. Why did you treat it as a big case this time?" Knowing that he couldn't deny this matter, Xiao Yulong simply admitted, "It's true." Sha Xinliang asked, "It said that you once said that it's enough to injure Chu Fian. If he really doesn't know what's good for him, you can also cripple him. As long as he's alive, it's okay to kill the young master of the Chu clan who treated you like a worker? Is that what you said?" Xiao Yulong knew that that person had already sold him out. He simply nodded. "I did say that." He thought, this isn't a big deal. After he finished this sentence, he instantly felt that the atmosphere in the hall was different from just now. The whole place became gloomy and cold. His heart skipped a beat. He raised his head and saw Sha Xinliang's face as black as the bottom of a pot. His chest was heaving up and down, and his eyes were radiating killing intent. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Sha Xinliang is related to that little bastard? Sha Xinliang said with a cold face, "So, you admit it?" "Yes, it's true." Xiao Yulong said, "Since Commander Sha is here, I'm willing to compensate." Sha Xinliang said coldly, The verdict of this case is that the purple crystals Huichun Hall healed the injuries of Xiao Yulong's subordinates first. Xiao Yulong not only didn't feel grateful but also robbed them. He repaid kindness with ingratitude. He's cruel and unscrupulous. He's even worse than pigs and dogs. His behavior violated the heavenly laws and violated the heavenly morals. If he's not severely punished, it's not enough to alert the world. He took a breath and said, Xiao Yulong and his accomplices will be punished with 40 strokes of the cane. Also, they'll be compensated for all the losses of the purple crystals Huichun Hall and their reputation. They'll be compensated for the injuries of the medical center's assistant Chu Fian and the mental compensation of the other assistant Chu Le. Xiao Yulong, are you convinced by my verdict? Xiao Yulong breathed a sigh of relief and said, I'll be responsible for the compensation. Chapter 786. Sha Xinliang said majestically, since you've admitted your guilt, then sign your name and make your mark. Xiao Yulong signed his name happily and pressed his thumbprint. He thought, this bastard Sha Xinliang is simply unreasonable. He actually made me like this for such a small matter. Humph, in the future, I'll definitely, Sha Xinliang said, bring the victim to the court. Big Boss Chu then made his grand entrance. Sha Xinliang said, Boss Chu, you can tell us about your losses. This steward Xiao has promised to compensate for all your losses. Moreover, he signed his name in the name of the Xiao clan. Xiao Yulong was stunned. When did I sign my name in the name of the Xiao clan? Instantly, he knew that he had been tricked by Sha Xinliang. He didn't look at it carefully just now. He only knew that the matter was over, so he signed his name. Now he was dumbfounded. Chu Yang said with grief and indignation, Thank you very much, Lord Enforcer. I'm really wronged. Sha Xinliang pretended to be impatient. Just tell us your losses. Who's interested in hearing you say that you're wronged? Chu Yang said in fear and trepidation, I've lost a lot of things in my medical center. Most of them were passed down from my ancestors. Let me think. 10,000-year-old snow ginseng, 5,000-year-old golden ginseng, 3 kilograms of 1,000-year-old Solomon's seal, 5,000-year-old purple lotus. Just as he started to speak, Xiao Yulong had already spat out a mouthful of blood. He shouted with grief and indignation, Commander Sha, this is blackmail. This was utter nonsense. This is nonsense. How can a small medical center have so many heavenly treasures? This is simply asking for too much. Xiao Yulong's heart turned cold. Shut up. Sha Xinliang shouted, Continue speaking. So, Chu Yang continued to blabber. Until he reached the 47th medicinal herb, he finally finished speaking. He said with some embarrassment, Lord Enforcer, these are the losses of the herbs. Let's forget about the rest. It's not easy for everyone. I'm also embarrassed to ask for more from our neighbors, lest others say that I'm blackmailing them. Isn't this blackmail? This is blackmail. Xiao Yulong roared. His eyes were bloodshot with grief and indignation. You're still embarrassed? If you're not embarrassed, how ruthless would you be? Wait for me, when I get out, I'll kill you. Sha Xinliang said impatiently, Are there any other losses? Chu Yang was so sorrowful that he wanted to cry. He said, My fourth uncle is seriously injured. I'm afraid. My younger sister is frightened. I'm afraid. I'm also seriously injured. I vomited a basin of blood. I'm afraid. In addition, the 2,000 purple crystals that were placed in the shop were also snatched away. I don't know where they are now. Chu Yang bowed deeply. Lord Enforcer, please uphold justice for me. Sha Xinliang nodded and said, You step aside first. Behind him, Shu Shu wrote swiftly. Xiao Yulong and the other three were shocked speechless, looking at the numbers and the names of the medicines that the owner of the clinic reported. Damn it, those who didn't know better would think that we had robbed the Medicine Valley. Xiao Yulong, you've robbed so many things. As long as you return them to them and pay some fines, you'll be able to bear this crime. Sha Xinliang sighed. Xiao Yulong, why do you always create so much trouble for me? It's not easy for me to manage the flat mountain ridge in an orderly manner. I've put in so much effort. Now that you've done this, Where can I keep my face? Xiao Yulong looked at him with his mouth agape. Finally he shouted, Commander Sha. This little bastard is obviously talking nonsense. When did we rob so many things from him? Speaking till here, he only felt that his chest was stuffy, and he almost vomited blood. Sha Xinliang said lightly, At first, I didn't believe it either. So after Boss Chu reported the case, I immediately detained him and personally went to the Chu clan to verify with Clan Master Chu Xiongqing. I found that it was indeed the case. Clan Master Chu even signed his name on it. As he said, he took out a piece of paper and shook it. On it were the names of the medicinal herbs, Chu Xiongqing's signature, Sha Xinliang's seal and the enforcer's seal to prove that it was correct. Of course, this was also made by Big Boss Chu himself. And the Clan Master Chu who signed his name was now at home in confusion and didn't know anything. Xiao Yulong was dumbfounded. Sha Xinliang snorted and said, Steward Xiao, there's a witness and material evidence. You can't deny it even if you want to. Xiao Yulong's face turned pale and he lowered his head. After a long time, he raised his head and said with hatred, May I ask Commander Sha, if I compensate according to the price, this case will be closed? Sha Xinliang said coldly, Since you've compensated, you'll naturally be dealt with lightly. Although this robbery case won't be erased, I don't think you'll be punished too severely because of this robbery. Xiao Yulong heaved a sigh of relief. Although he still didn't know why Sha Xinliang went crazy today, the purple crystals that he had plundered over these years, together with all the purple crystals in the clan branch, should be enough to compensate. As for revenge or other matters, I'll settle this first. As long as I'm still alive, I won't have to worry about not having enough purple crystals. Thinking till here, he said, I'll be responsible for the compensation. When he said this, his heart was really bleeding. After working hard for decades, he was back to the point where he was rich overnight. And he even misappropriated a huge amount of public funds. How could the word hate be enough? Since this is the case, I'll make a decision and let you, Xiao Yulong, get some benefits. How about a total of 13,000 purple crystals as compensation? Do you admit it? Xiao Yulong said in despair, Since it's come to this, what else can I say? I admit it, Sha Xinliang said pleasantly. Since this is the case, you can sign your name and I'll send someone to collect it. Xiao Yulong was also a straightforward person. Since it had come to this point, and he could obviously see that Sha Xinliang was partial to the other party, there was nothing he could do if he didn't admit it. He signed his name quickly, wrote a letter, gave his seal, and explained in detail who was going to find the accountant and where the purple crystals were hidden. Sha Xinliang winked at the two enforcers, and they took these things away. Then, they went out and called a few people to drive a carriage towards the Xiao clan branch. They went to collect the purple crystals. The trial of Xiao Yulong's joint robbery case has come to an end, Sha Xinliang announced majestically. Xiao Yulong was overjoyed. He finally recovered some energy and said, Thank you, Commander Sha. He glared at Chu Yang fiercely and thought, When I go back, I'll make this little bastard spit out all the purple crystals that you want me to take out. Next, we'll begin the trial of Xiao Yulong and his subordinates for intending to rebel, resisting the law, and injuring the enforcers, which resulted in the death of 10 enforcers. Sha Xinliang's eyes were cold as he gritted his teeth and said, Ah? Xiao Yulong was instantly dumbfounded. Not only him, even the other 3 people also raised their heads in disbelief. Robbing a medical center was not a big deal. But resisting the law and killing the law-bearers was truly a heinous crime. Sha Xinliang said coldly, Xiao Yulong, you sent people to rob the medical center last night, and the victim's family reported the case. You sent people last night, and I also sent people last night to stop you. I just wanted to stop your evil deeds, but I didn't expect you to be so deranged as to brazenly attack those who wield the Tao. And you clearly said that you were the one who sent them. In last night's battle, the 10 enforcers were all seriously injured and almost died. Fortunately, I arrived in time and apprehended the culprit. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you get away with it. Sha Xinliang said sadly, but it's a pity that the 10 enforcers are all seriously injured and dying. This is all your fault. Sha Xinliang roared, Xiao Yulong. How dare you? There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Xiao Yulong was really desperate and panicked at this time. He knew that once this crime was confirmed, he would definitely not leave any of his lives behind even if he had 10,000 lives. Sha Xinliang snorted and said, "There are both witnesses and material evidence. This is an ironclad case. Not to mention that I and Chief Steward Qin of the Enforcer Auction Hall are at the scene. How can we allow you to deny it?" His eyes were red and he shouted, "Bring them up." Immediately, pairs of black-clothed men carried stretchers in pairs and solemnly walked over. On the stretchers, there were many human bodies. They were all wearing the clothes of the enforcers. Everyone seemed to be on the verge of death. Their bodies were covered with wounds, and it was too horrible to look at. Of course, this was Divine Dr. Chu's masterpiece. With his means, it was not difficult for him to make these people pretend to be seriously injured. "These are all my good brothers." Sha Xinliang looked at Xiao Yulong. "They're also the masterpieces of you and your subordinates." He turned his head and roared, "Bring up their testimonies." The book was hurriedly brought over. Sha Xinliang threw it on Xiao Yulong's face and said coldly, "Xiao Yulong, what else do you have to say?" Xiao Yulong fainted after taking a look at it. It was written how he arranged for people to rob the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall, how he said it, how he arranged it, how he used his means and how he started the operation. Everything was written clearly, as if that night had reappeared. Even the tone of every sentence that he said was marked on it. The most terrible thing was that someone once asked him, "What if the enforcers intervene?" At that time, Xiao Yulong said, "Enforcers? Why should I care about them when it can be settled with a few purple crystals?" Now, this sentence was also marked with emphasis. It was written all the way until the next night when they set off. However, after they arrived, how they saw the enforcers, how they fought against the enforcers in order to complete Xiao Yulong's task, how they fought and how they caused casualties. Although the process was written clearly and orderly, it was all fake. Of course, Xiao Yulong didn't know that these were all fake. Now, he was already in despair. After seeing the real situation in front of him, he instinctively no longer doubted this testimonies. It was stained with blood, which showed how difficult it was to obtain this testimonies. A basin of cold water was poured on Xiao Yulong's face by Sha Xinliang's martial arts. Xiao Yulong woke up and met Sha Xinliang's cruel eyes. He suddenly shouted hysterically, "I want to see them! I want to see them! They can't do this to me!" He actually burst into tears, snot and tears running down his face. He was extremely heartbroken. Chapter 787. Sha Xinliang's eyes were cold as he said, "Xiao Yulong, did you say these words? Did you say anything wrong?" As he roared, his eyes suddenly shot out that kind of blazing radiance. It was firmly locked onto Xiao Yulong's eyes. Xiao Yulong's nerves were already on the verge of collapse. Now that his cultivation was sealed, how could he resist this kind of soul-sucking technique? He was instantly restrained. Then, he began to recount the whole story. Everyone listened and compared it with the confession. Surprisingly, it was almost the exact same thing. The three people who were caught together with Xiao Yulong's side at the same time. They knew that they were completely finished. They didn't even have the chance to retract their testimonies. Moreover, the Xiao clan would also be in big trouble. Who would have thought that dealing with a small clinic in the flat mountain ridge, which had just arrived in the upper three heavens, would actually cause such a big trouble? Then, Sha Xinliang gave each of them a testimonies and signed them. It was useless to deny it now. Besides, Sha Xinliang still had that kind of divine skill that could control people's minds. He could still do it even if he drugged them. Although that skill couldn't completely drive a person to do difficult movements, it was still easy for him to sign a testimonial and press his fingerprints. Holding this stack of testimonies, Sha Xinliang's eyes were as cold as ice. Take these people away and lock them up separately in the death prison. Every day, he made them feel comfortable. How can we let them off so easily since they wanted to cut off old Wu's life? As for the original one, just do whatever you want. It's convenient for him to die. He snorted heavily and said, "This case is as solid as a mountain. I'd like to see what kind of explanation the Shao clan is going to give me. Can the Shao clan kill us, the law enforcers, as they wish? Is going against the law enforcers openly the Shao clan's way of doing things and rules? The 4 people blacked out and fainted at the same time. Seeing these 4 pitiful people being taken away, Sha Xinliang waved his hands and dismissed the people around him, leaving only the 10 seriously injured and dying law enforcers and Chu Yang. Then, after the people left, he said softly, "Get up." The 10 of them got up at the same time. Sha Xinliang said, "In the future, after you've received your compensation, please settle down your family members properly. If anyone wants to become a secret guard, you can also make a request now. I'll give you a case record of an untreatable death, and you can join the secret guard." The 10 of them were overjoyed. After being busy for a long time, Sha Xinliang finally finished his work and had time to talk to Chu Yang. "Little brother, how's it going?" "Brilliant. It was too high. As tall as a mountain." Chu Yang couldn't stop praising him. He raised his thumb and said, "Elder brother's methods are really very crafty." His methods were clean and efficient, and he killed decisively. Little brother was amazed. Sha Xinliang smiled. Chu Yang deliberated and said, "But this seems to be going a little overboard. I'm afraid that you will offend the Shao clan." Sha Xinliang sighed and said, "Little brother, you don't understand that there aren't many good people among us who are in charge of laws. Or it can be said that among us who are in charge of laws, there are many greedy and lecherous people. Taking bribes and bending the law was not uncommon. But that depends on the situation. Even if we're bad, after all, we have to wear this uniform and perform this duty. Naturally, the heart has responsibilities. Moreover, every district will have an assessment every year to determine the results and promotion. The assessment is to ensure the stability of the district. Even if it's not for the interests of the commoners, for the sake of our own promotion, we must at least maintain the stability on the surface. So, before this, if there's anything wrong, it's fine to just wipe it off." Sha Xinliang smiled bitterly, but this time, Xiao Yulong has gone overboard. Coupled with the matter of the short fatty, there's no more hope for my district this year. Since there's no more hope, then what's there for me to worry about? It's better to use the Shao clan to establish my authority. This way, I may be able to recover some of the influence of the higher-ups. So, it's no big deal to offend the Shao clan. If the secret guards never offend anyone, they will be disqualified. Chu Yang nodded and said thoughtfully, "I see." Sha Xinliang said, "I'll send this matter together with the case file to the chief executive of this district, Mr. Fa. Mr. Fa will be responsible for negotiating with the Shao clan. All in all, the prestige of the secret guards can't be humiliated. The blood of the secret guards can't be shed in vain." Chu Yang said, "What if the Shao clan comes to ask for the secret guards?" Sha Xinliang smiled faintly and said, "Little brother, you're simple and honest, and you don't know much about the world. I'll give you a piece of advice." Chu Yang said respectfully, "Elder brother, please tell me. I'm all ears." Sha Xinliang clasped his hands behind his back and said, "When you hit a snake, you must kill it. If you've offended someone, don't think about apologizing. You might as well offend him again. Offend him to the end. If you want to mend your relationship and apologize, then you'll be the one to die." Between ordinary people, there may be forgiving and turning hostility into friendship. But between martial artists, it's absolutely impossible. Chu Yang thought for a while, and finally said gratefully, "Elder brother, I'll definitely remember your priceless advice." Sha Xinliang smiled faintly and said in a low voice, "To tell you the truth, I definitely won't let Xiao Yulong and the others live until they can go out. So, the Shao clan won't let them go out alive." He squinted his eyes and said, "If he really goes out, you'll be in danger." Then he smiled and said, "If you're in danger, we're in danger too." The two looked at each other and smiled. Chu Yang said, "I still feel that this matter is like a trap. Will Mr. blame you for this?" Sha Xinliang smiled and said, "Little brother, the whole world is a big trap, and we're all living in this big trap. Although this is a trap, If Xiao Yulong doesn't send people here, what's the use of the trap? Since he's here and injured people, then the trap is no longer a complete trap. It's a fact. It's irrefutable evidence. He sneered. There are so many clans in the flat mountain ridge, why can't the trap trap others? Chu Yang was relieved and said, Elder brother, you're right. At this time, the people who went to the Xiao clan's branch also came back. 2 big boxes were carried in. When the boxes were opened, purple gas filled the air. They were all purple crystals. Lord Commander, your subordinates have finished counting the 13,000 purple crystals. The cultivator with the purple crystals knelt on one knee and reported. Sha Xinliang said lightly, you can leave now. Go to the cultivation method hall to receive your reward. That cultivator thanked him and got up to leave. Sha Xinliang turned around and said smilingly, little brother, these are all compensation for you. I'll send them back to you in my carriage later. Ha, you're already one of the richest people in the flat mountain ridge at such a young age. Chu Yang's face turned serious and he said seriously, Elder brother Sha, I can't accept these purple crystals. Sha Xinliang was surprised. Why? Chu Yang smiled and said, Elder brother Sha, you're also clear that my loss isn't that much. If I take these purple crystals, I'm afraid I'll feel uneasy. He didn't wait for Sha Xinliang to speak and said, Elder brother Sha and elder brother Qin can share these purple crystals equally. He smiled sincerely and said, didn't I say earlier that as long as elder brother acts, this little brother will be responsible for getting back the purple crystals that elder brother used to buy the medicine? That's why I dared to report such a huge loss. Now, how can I accept these purple crystals? Sha Xinliang was displeased and said, little brother, you're slapping my face. As he said, Qin Baoshan also walked out to persuade Chu Yang. But Chu Yang only shook his head and refused. In the end, Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan were almost angered, but Chu Yang still insisted on not accepting. While the two were appreciating the purple crystals, they couldn't help but feel a little speechless. Only then did I realize that the people walking on the road were all from our community. I ran for another 40 minutes and found that there was water. So I couldn't hold it in anymore. Although there was water, it was very small, and I couldn't take a bath. I just wanted to take a bath before sleeping. I'm a clean freak, and I couldn't sleep because my body was sticky. So I just waited while writing. But then this morning, the water supply was cut off again. I'm really helpless. I'm so sleepy that I can't stand it. Although I'm a clean freak, I can only sleep like this once, helpless. Chapter 788. That Xiao Yulong? How did he deal with him? Chu Xiongcheng's face was full of anger. This bastard actually dared to lay his hands on his grandson. He would definitely not let him off easily. Even if he couldn't take revenge openly, he had to beat him up secretly. Yang Bao immediately thought of something and asked, that's right. What about Xiao Yulong, who was born without a fart? Damn it, where is he? I'm going to tear him apart alive. Chu Yang sighed and said, your wish is going to fall through. Xiao Yulong obstructed the execution of the law, scolded the execution of the law, beat up the execution of the law, and caused 10 execution of the law to be seriously injured. He's currently in the execution of the law's prison. He's awaiting the final verdict. Gasps of cold air could be heard from the surroundings. This Xiao Yulong really has guts. Yang Bao couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, motherfucker, obstructing a practitioner of the Tao, beating up a practitioner of the Tao, even I don't dare to do this. Motherfucker, the people of the great Master Nozai family are really awesome. Everyone started to ask questions, but Chu Yang only said that the execution of the law was fair and that Xiao Yulong was despicable. Then he told them the result. As for the process, he didn't know anything. When they were pressed, he pretended to be ignorant. I've just come. I really don't know about all these. Everyone was so stupefied that they didn't even manage to get a single detail out of Chu Yang. Yang, do you know Commander Sha? Chu Feilong's eyes flashed and he asked. Yes. Chu Yang smiled innocently. He was the one who asked me the last time he asked me a question. This time, he's the one who came to preside over the execution of the law for me. Commander Shah is a good person. Chu Fei Long smiled and said, yes, but Yang Yang's fortune is really good. Chu Yang smiled shyly, second uncle, you're praising me. Chu Fei Long smiled warmly, you're my nephew. If you're very lucky, I'll definitely benefit from it too. Chu Yang said sincerely, second uncle, if I'm really so lucky, you'll definitely benefit from it too. Chu Fei Long laughed heartily. His expression was full of love as he said, good child. Embarrassed, Chu Yang pursed his lips and smiled. He was slightly bashful as he said, second uncle, you flatter me. The uncle and nephew pair got along harmoniously, laughing and chatting harmoniously. What an enviable family. At the side, old Master Yang Bao was listening to the conversation between the uncle and nephew. Suddenly, he turned his head and transmitted his voice to old Mistress Yang. Strange, when the uncle and nephew are talking, they look so warm. Why do I suddenly feel gusts of chilly wind? I have goosebumps all over my body. Old Mistress Yang rolled her eyes at him and sent him a telepathic message. Something is indeed a little off. She pondered for a while and said, but I can't put my finger on what exactly is wrong. Old Master Yang Bao nodded and sent a telepathic message to Chu Yang. You said? Lan Lan previously mentioned that Chu Feilong is very suspicious. What do you think? Old Mistress Yang looked at Chu Feilong discreetly and frowned. For a long time, she didn't speak. Everyone felt relieved when they saw that Chu Yang was safe and sound. Moreover, they couldn't get anything out of him. Although they were still puzzled in their hearts, they knew that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. But they couldn't do anything about it. Chu Yang found an excuse to stay in the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. He was perturbed and thought, fourth uncle and the little girl better not let it slip. Once he entered, he saw that Chu Fian and the little girl were inside. They didn't leave with the rest of the group. We're preparing for a big banquet. Why didn't you go back? Chu Yang was stunned. Chu Fian smiled bitterly and pointed at Chu Lu. This little girl won't let me go. Huh? Chu Yang looked at Lu. Chu Lu wrinkled her nose and said, there are some things that we haven't confessed yet. This isn't good for you, brother. Confession? Chu Yang smiled and said, what confession? Chu Lu glared at him and said, don't be so cheeky. I'm talking about serious matters with you. Chu Fian smiled bitterly and said, this little girl is mischievous. When you didn't come back, she warned me to say that I don't know anything before I get an answer from you. Then she said that you know everything and pushed all the blame to you. Even when your grandpa Wu asked me just now, she also pinched me behind my back. Tiske, my waist is already bruised. Chu Yang was stunned and looked deeply at Chu Lu. He said softly, has a bright future? He left a long note at the end of his sentence. The way he looked at his little sister was also a little serious, as if he was looking at someone of the same age. He didn't dare to underestimate her anymore. She was probably the only child in the world who could make Chu Yenwu and Wang Luwu show such an expression. Chu Yang's face was serious. He carried Chu Lu and placed her on his lap. He asked gently, oh, why did you do this? Tell me the reason. Chu Lu was 12 years old. However, because of her small body, she started to have puberty later. Now, she looked like she was only 8 years old. Therefore, Chu Yang didn't feel that there was anything wrong with carrying the little girl on his lap. Instead, it was the little girl who felt a little awkward. She actually blushed a little and struggled slightly. Then, as if she had convinced herself, she sat obediently on Chu Yang's lap. She didn't say anything, but she first brushed her hair and said, of course, there's a reason for doing this. She stretched out a white and tender finger and said methodically, firstly, this matter was obviously planned by you. We don't know what you're going to do next, or whether you have a next move. So, before you answer, whatever we say will be wrong. Secondly, even if we believe everyone in our clan, there are still too many people. If this matter is spread out, it will become more and more ridiculous. It won't be good for you. Thirdly, this matter involves both the wielder of the law and the Shao clan. It's very difficult for our Chu clan to be sandwiched between the two huge forces. Since you've arranged this, you must have a way to deal with it. No matter what we say, we may not be able to carry out your plan. Before Grandpa and the rest came, I told fourth uncle that Big Brother would definitely not say anything when he comes back. So, it's best that we don't say anything either. Chu Le raised her small face and smiled slyly. Just right. Chu Fian was stunned by her words. Is this still a 12-year-old little girl? Even I didn't think of some of these things that she thought of. Chu Yang let out a long breath. His eyes were fixed on Chu Le, and he said sincerely, "Or will definitely be very amazing in the future." He said softly, "With her in the Chu clan, even without me, the clan will be able to remain undefeated for 1,000 years." Chu Fian was shocked. The way he looked at Chu Lu also became a little strange and even a little respectful. In the entire upper three heavens, perhaps only he understood the weight of Chu Yang's words. Because these words came from the mouth of the king of Hell Chu. That king of Hell Chu, who overturned the lower three heavens in 1.5 years, overturned the upper three heavens in less than a year, and was about to stir up the big clans in less than 10 days after arriving in the upper three heavens. The next few days were a little peaceful. After the Yang clan came to see their grandson, they stayed for a few more days and finally left. Before they left, they kept reminding Chu Yang that he must go to Aspen Valley to stay for a few days when he had time. Chu Yang agreed readily. Everyone was very enthusiastic, except for cousin Yang Yaya, who looked at Chu Yang with a little apprehension and a little alienation. At first, Chu Yang wanted to ignore this kind of look. But later, he carefully analyzed it and finally determined that this seemingly introverted and shy cousin of his had someone in her heart. Naturally, Chu Yang told this to his mother without reservation. His mother also secretly told her sister-in-law about this. Therefore, Chu Yang's aunt had one more thing on her mind on the way back. After the Yang clan left, the sword spirit said to Chu Yang, "Your grandfather's clan seems to be in trouble." Chu Yang was startled and said, "Trouble? This time, your grandfather brought the whole clan to see you. It's a little too grand. Moreover, it seems to be hiding something. In his blood cloak team, there are many people whose cultivations are much higher than the others. They are obviously important experts of the clan in disguise." The sword spirit said. Chu Yang pondered. "Moreover, I once heard your grandfather ask your uncle, 'Is it about time?' Then your uncle said, 'It's 2 days too late.' After saying this, they said goodbye the next day." The sword spirit said, "The journey from here to Aspen Valley is not short, and the journey will take 5 days. In other words, he said that it's 2 days too late, and another day has passed, so the journey will take another 5 days. It can be said that it's very generous." Chu Yang pondered in silence, frowning slightly. "So I concluded that this time, it's not just to see you." The sword spirit said, "It's just that your return coincidentally provides a legitimate reason. That's all." Chu Yang was even more silent. After a long time, he said, "There will be a day when the truth comes out." The sword spirit said nothing. After the Yang clan left, Chu Yang continued to stay in his own medical center. Chu Fian was still an assistant, and Chu Lu was still a little tail that couldn't be shaken off. But this little tail was slowly stretching and growing. There was no news from the Hall of Justice. The Bao clan and the Liao clan also didn't make any moves. The Xiao clan didn't even have the time to react. Sha Xinliang's and Qin Baoshan's medicines were only missing the 2 heavenly treasures that were still on the way. Because of this, Boss Chu's medical center also seemed to have gained some fame, and customers began to visit him occasionally. Well, it must be said that there were a few nights when Boss Chu wasn't in the medical center, but went out to develop customers. As long as he wasn't in the medical center at night, there would definitely be a customer with strange injuries waiting to be treated at the entrance of the medical center the next morning. Because of this, Boss Chu's wallet gradually grew bigger, and he never got tired of it. Although there were only 1 or 2 customers every day, this big boss of the purple crystals, Hui Chun Hall, could definitely be said to be the person with the highest income in the entire street every day. Exorbitant medical fees. It's really too black-hearted. In just a few days, King of Hell Chu once again received an inelegant title, Black-Hearted Saint. His skills in treating injuries were really good, and he could be called a saint. But this heart of his couldn't be any blacker than it already was. Chapter 789. During this period of time, the upper three heavens appeared to be peaceful on the surface, but in the dark, a storm was brewing. The moment Li Xiongtu returned to the clan, he instantly became the treasure of the clan. Even Li Xiongtu himself didn't expect that he would receive such exceptional treatment the moment he arrived. From the looks of it, he was being groomed as the future core of the Li clan. Li Xiongtu was at a loss. After returning to the clan, he thought that he would be content with a caretaker arranging a quiet place for him. He would slowly work on the rest in the future. Who would have thought that after he returned, 3 generations of elders would come out of seclusion at the same time? Although Li Xiongtu was calm, he was also somewhat flattered. But there was one thing that made Li Xiongtu very unhappy. Because the attitude of the elders, including the clan master, towards him was a little strange. How should he put it? It wasn't cordial, nor was it distant. It wasn't even rejection. It was a kind of deliberate closeness. Moreover, some of them were more or less cautious. Li Xiongtu couldn't understand. What's going on? I'm just a small pawn who just came up from the upper 3 heavens. Any one of you can crush me to death with just a finger. Why are you still like this? Moreover, people often asked him some inexplicable questions. The most common thing they had in common was that they were all very interested in their friends. Li Xiongtu was extremely depressed. For so many years, he was obsessed with martial arts. Other than admiration for Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang, where did he have any other friends? Later on, when he was asked more and more, Li Xiongtu wasn't the kind of person who would twist his words. He just directly said, "I don't have any friends, much less any brothers who have gone through life and death together." But he didn't expect that after he said this, many people's attitudes became even more ambiguous. They actually nodded repeatedly. Yes, this is how it should be. I think so too. You don't have any friends, no brothers, huh? It's how it should be, how it should be. Li Xiongtu couldn't figure it out. He asked them why they asked this, but none of them said anything. They just smiled and looked at him meaningfully. The most ridiculous thing was that after an elder saw him, he said, "As expected of, your aptitude is indeed not bad." As expected of what? Li Xiongtu couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he racked his brains. Then, he would occasionally overhear other people talking about him, and it would be in bits and pieces. Li Xiongtu, this little one, is really... he's really scheming. Look at that silly look. Those who don't know would really think that he's not. Li Xiongtu thought hard for a long time, but he became more and more confused. After that, everyone urged him to practice martial arts without holding anything back. As for techniques and resources, he had everything he needed. Li Xiongtu secretly observed and realized that the direct descendants of the other families only received 30 purple crystals per month. This was already an astronomical figure. Even Li Ba Tian only received 50 purple crystals. Li Ju, who was the first in the family, received 80 purple crystals per month. As for himself, he actually received a terrifying 200 purple crystals per month. It was almost twice as much as Li Ju. Furthermore, there was actually no one who raised any objections. Even Li Ju, who was known as the number 1 among the younger generation, was a person who was neither servile nor overbearing when facing the old ancestor. He was even more so when facing those of the same generation. But when he saw him, he still greeted him with a smile. There wasn't much enthusiasm, but there was definitely no enmity. There was even a faint desire to mend relations. Even someone like Li Xiongtu was a little scared in the end. What's going on? Thus, he started his life in the upper 3 heavens with such confusion. It had to be said that Li Xiongtu's aptitude was indeed extraordinary, and he had the full support of the huge family behind him. Once he calmed down and cultivated, his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. The faster his cultivation improved, the more gratified everyone was. They weren't surprised at all. Generally speaking, it was considered fast for an emperor to break through one stage in 3 years. If someone broke through one stage in a year, they would be considered a genius, and would definitely cause a commotion. But Li Xiongtu relied on a mysterious force in his body to increase his cultivation by 1 stage in half a month. This should have been something that would shock the world, but the elders of the Li clan all acted as if it was a matter of course. This made Li Xiongtu even more confused. What's going on? Damn it, are they trying to suffocate me? However, the number of people who came to chat with him had decreased recently. Furthermore, everyone was in a hurry with a heavy expression on their faces. It seemed that something big had happened. He could vaguely hear that the conflicts between the various major clans and the Li clan were gradually increasing. When Li Xiongtu asked, everyone smiled and told him not to worry, he would definitely be fine. Damn it, what am I worried about? What can happen to me? Zhuge clan. 5th small courtyard. Diwu Qingru sat in the pavilion in the courtyard, holding a book in his hand and looking very relaxed. There was a cup of tea in front of him, and the fragrance of the tea rose in spirals. A gentle breeze blew, and the bamboo forest swayed and rustled. The whole courtyard was quiet and peaceful. A person appeared behind him silently. For a long time, Diwu Qingru didn't seem to have noticed at all. He focused on reading and smiled lightly. This person finally couldn't hold it in and said, "So carefree." Diwu Qingru turned around and smiled. "So it's 7th brother." The person who came was the 7th brother of the Zhuge clan's generation, Zhuge Yunwu. He was also the one in the Zhuge clan who was most compatible with Diwu Qingru. Actually, just from the fact that he was compatible with Diwu Qingru, it could be seen that this Zhuge Yunwu was definitely not a simple person. If he was an ordinary person, why would Diwu Qingru be compatible with him? Qingru, the big clans are already in turmoil now, and war is about to reach the heavenly layer. But you're still so carefree here. Zhuge Yunwu was dressed in plain clothes, and his expression was calm. There was a smile on his face, and his eyes were long and slender. His face was white and beardless, and he looked like a person who didn't care about the affairs of the world at all. Even though he was talking about the situation in the heavenly layer, he was still calm and casual, like a breeze brushing past one's ears. Even if the war reaches the heavenly layer, as long as 7th brother is here, nothing will happen to the Zhuge clan. Du Qingru smiled and said, "But 7th brother must have something to tell me this time. I'm all ears." "Yes, you're right. 7th brother wouldn't visit without a reason. Since he's here at your house of wisdom, there must be something he can't decide." Zhuge Yunwu smiled gently. "7th brother, please tell me." Diwu Qingru finally closed the book and raised his head to look at Zhuge Yunwu. "Let's be frank. Qingru, I know you're capable. I'm here to ask you an answer." Zhuge Yunwu said directly. "The answer?" Diwu Qingru seemed to have guessed what Zhuge Yunwu wanted to ask. Before Zhuge Yunwu could ask, he frowned. Zhuge Yunwu sat down in front of him and said softly, "Now, the Zhuge clan is planning to gradually increase the friction between the Li clan and us. We're trying to cause a conflict and reveal that layer," Diwu Qingru replied with an "Oh." Zhuge Yunwu took in a breath and said, "Qingru, you must know that this is because the Tribulation Sword Master." Diwu Qingru frowned and didn't say anything. Zhuge Yunwu looked at Diwu Qingru's frowning brows and his eyes flashed. He said quietly, "The Li clan has recently received Li Xiongtu from the upper 3 heavens. Qingru, what do you think of this person?" Zhuge Yunwu's eyes were like stars. He stared at Diwu Qingru's face and said, "Li Xiongtu, 24 years old. He's from the Li clan of the upper 3 heavens. His aptitude has been outstanding since he was young. He had a foundation when he was 3 years old. He broke through to martial warrior when he was 5 years old. He broke through to martial master when he was 9 years old. He became a martial great when he was 13 years old. He became a martial revered when he was 17 years old. He became a martial king when he was 10 years old. However, before he came to the upper 3 heavens, during the battle at the Lake of Despair, he was a peak 2nd stage martial emperor when he was 24 years old. Moreover, his combat power was enough to defeat a normal 4th stage martial emperor. He could even be on par with a 5th stage martial emperor. Diwu Qingru grunted and said, "Are you saying that he has directly advanced from a 4th grade king level expert to a 2nd grade emperor level expert within a year?" or perhaps less than a year. Suspicious? Zhuge Yunwu nodded and looked at him. He was quiet for a while, as if he was giving him time to think. Then he said, recently, there was news that ever since Li Xiongtu came to the upper three heavens, he had improved to a third-stage martial emperor within half a month. Diwu Qingrou's eyebrows moved. Is there such a thing? Zhuge Yunwu smiled faintly. This speed is very fast, right? Diwu Qingru didn't say anything and started to think. Also, before he came to the upper three heavens, someone gave him an elixir. At that time, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. However, after he took it, he immediately recovered. Zhuge Yunwu emphasized, and that person's move was, what harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? That elixir is a heavy elixir. Other than the heavy elixir, there's no other elixir in the world that can have such an effect. When Zhuge Yunwu said the words heavy pill, he obviously emphasized it again. Moreover, there was a hint of excitement in his voice. Diwu Qingru smiled faintly and didn't comment. At that time, the people from the big clans and the law enforcement officers walked together and supervised each other. They almost never left each other. That person didn't seem to find a chance. So, when he was about to enter the upper three heavens, he took the risk to give the elixir. After exchanging a blow, he immediately disappeared. Even the law enforcement officers couldn't catch up with him. Zhuge Yunwu said softly, there's only one suspicious point in this matter. That is, there was a strange phenomenon in the sky. If that person was really the master of the Calamity Sword, he should have appeared at the place where the strange phenomenon appeared, and not to give the elixir. However, according to the description of the power of that move and the way it changed, the few elders of the big clans all agreed that it was the fiercest move of the Calamity Sword Master's Calamity Sword technique. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? And there's absolutely no mistake. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.